Yo, what is up, everybody? It's me, that one weeb, here with my first ever My Hero Academia What If, as you guys have read in the title. So, I was reading through the comments on my videos, since I read all my comments and likes and everything. Thank you guys so much for suggesting stuff. And I saw that someone commented, I'll put it on screen, like right here, that they would like some My Hero Academia What Ifs, so I said, bet, and I'll make one. So, here we go, and since I love Naruto so much, we'll start with one of those. What if Deku's quirk was Chakra? So basically, in this what if, Deku, instead of being born without a quirk and quirkless, he would have a mutation like what Eri had, and it would not be related to both his father or his mother. Instead, he would have this ability called Chakra, which is in like the Naruto series. He has these lines that go through his entire body that have the energy of Chakra flowing through them, which allows him to use ninjutsu, genjutsu, and higher durability in taijutsu. Our story will begin right now. When Deku's born, he's obviously taken to the quirk doctors immediately to see if he was born with a quirk or if he'll develop one later in life or if he even has one. When this happens, Deku is examined and is found that he has abnormal veins inside his body that are not normal to other people. So when they discover this, they can assume that Deku does have some sort of quirk, though it doesn't show anything yet. The next few years in his life, Deku develops his quirk slowly. He meets Bakugo and the other people at his school, and when Bakugo picks on him for not having a quirk, this makes Deku upset, and he tells him that he does have one, and he's going to be strong just like All Might. So he shows Bakugo that he's wrong. He uses Chakra, and he uses a transformation jutsu. So basically, he figures out it's natural to him in his head how to do certain easier ones that he can do by manipulating his energy, and he transforms into Bakugo, and then pulls his eye down, and forces his tongue out at him. This pisses Bakugo off, who doesn't even have a quirk yet either, and knows that he's gonna get one soon. And when Bakugo gets his own explosion quirk, he says that Deku's weird quirk isn't as good as his, and so that kind of makes Deku upset, and he says that he's wrong. So for the next few years of their lives, Bakugo and Deku are still rivals, but Bakugo doesn't pick on Izuku as much, just because Izuku has a decently powerful quirk. And this is the point where Naruto and them are walking through a museum in their middle school on a field trip. And they're walking through and they find that there's a ancient scroll that was from a long time ago, and it was more from an ancient civilization where ninjas were the ones who roamed the earth, and they had different lands named after the elements. Now, when Naruto's reading the scroll, he realizes he can understand the language it's written in, and that he sees some of these, and that it turns out this is the scroll of sealing from Naruto. He immediately stops while the rest of the group goes on, and he learns some of the basic jutsu and chakra things. And this is when he realizes what his actual quirk is. So it seemed that quirks had developed out of nowhere, when in fact people had predicted that it came from mice or something. But it turns out that quirks were a manifestation of chakra that had been missing from the world until that point. After Naruto's fight with Kaguya, and long after the Boruto series and Kawaki and the Ninja World's fall, chakra had settled into the land, into the plants, and returned to nature energy. When that happened, people had lost all their abilities to use chakra, so their bodies manifested new abilities using their genetics, called quirks, that used chakra but only in one way, and it was only self-generated chakra. When Deku discovers this, he realizes something, that his quirk is actually this energy that it's talking about in the scroll. He immediately starts writing down notes on what the scroll says about this type of clone jutsu and transformation jutsu and shuriken and what different kind of weapons, and he's intrigued by how it works. So he realizes all of this and then continues going on about his day. When he gets home later that day, he begins practicing these new hand signs he wrote down in his notebook. He immediately clasps his hands together and begins making tiger hand signs and different ninja hand seals. When he does this, he makes one clone, not a shadow clone, but a normal clone, which is kind of sad and pathetic at that point. Up until that now, Deku had always thought that his quirk was just energy manipulation, because he could do small things like make lights flicker on and off and other stuff, as well as do a transformation, but that was the only thing he learned intuitively. After that, he decided he would work on training his Quirk. This is where we get to the main story where he's being bullied by Bakugo, and they're about to graduate and choose what high school they want to go to. When everyone hears that Bakugo wants to go to UA High, they don't hear it. No one is surprised about it. But then when they hear that Deku wants to go to UA High, they're kind of shocked. But they think that they don't know if his Quirk is strong enough, and they say he might want to do something else. But Deku frowns and looks up and says that it doesn't matter and that he will become a hero. Later that day, Bakugo, at the end of class, looks at his notebook, which instead of having all heroes and stuff in it, it has heroes and also mixtures of other notes and scrabbles of hand seals and different jutsu is what he's calling it. He picks it up and says that, look how stupid it is, and he burns it with his explosion Quirk, which makes Deku sad. He then throws it out the window and says that he might as well swan dive off the window and hope to get a better Quirk in the next life. When he says this, Deku looks up at him with a rage, and his hands are together. When this happens, Chakra envelops his hand, and he pounds his fist on the desk next to him, and it shatters in half. Afterwards, he goes downstairs at the school and picks up his notebook and begins walking home. When suddenly, behind him, sludge begins pulling out of the drain, and he turns around and sees a sludge monster looking at him, about to devour him whole. As he's being sucked inside, he says this can't be the end, and just as he's about to realize what's going to happen, he's pulled into a void. He wakes up, and it's the Sage of Six Paths, as we know, an old man who tells Naruto that he can't die yet, as Chakra has to come back to the world in order to save it, which makes Deku confused as to what's going on. And the Sage of Six Paths presses his hand at him and says that he'll need some Chakra for now to escape. When he does this, a wave of Chakra pulses out of Deku in the real world and shoots the sludge villain off of him. Deku falls to the ground and is gasping heavily. Then All Might comes out of nowhere and punches the sludge villain, instantly knocking him out. He says hello to the young man and is impressed with how he took care of that villain so handily. He says that his name is All Might, and Deku is excited to meet him. Yo, what is up everybody? It's me, Weeb, back with another part of this new and popular What If, my first ever My Hero Academia What If. What if Deku from My Hero Academia had the Quirk of Chakra, Part 2. Last time in Part 1, Naruto, Deku discovered that his Quirk of Chakra was actually linked to all quirks and the origin of all quirks, and how the history of Naruto and the ninja civilizations helped create Chakra and everything. When he learns this, he eventually was jumped by the sludge villain when the Sage of Six Paths, Hashirama, gives him enough Chakra to escape so that way he can live on and eventually reclaim the ways of Chakra in the world. Eventually, All Might came and punched the villain, completely knocking out the sludge villain. He says that Deku did an amazing job, and Deku's fanboying out, seeing the All Might's skill and his attack. He asks if he can sign his notebook, and then immediately he does. When he signs his notebook, Deku is just so happy, and when he's about to jump away, Deku doesn't jump onto him because he knows that no matter what, he'll still become a hero. When All Might jumps away, he immediately debuffs into his normal form, and he has the bottle still with him from the sludge villain. The sludge villain attack doesn't happen in this timeline as he escaped, and the Bakugo incident did not occur. He takes the sludge villain and gives him to the police in the bottles, and as he does so, he's captured. Deku, happy that he met his idol, finally he walks home. When he walks home, he decides that the UA entrance exam is coming in a few months, 10 months to be exact, and that he needs to train his Quirk in order to get strong enough. And now, knowing that old man, exactly what he told him to do, he's going to told him how he can learn to use Chakra, he decides he's going to give it his all. He goes online and begins researching history of the Earth and everything, and eventually finds about ruins long ago in a land close to Japan, actually, that used to be known as the Land of Fire. There are scrolls and different other ancient texts there that no one can read. Naruto sees the images online and immediately starts to write down them. He begins practicing every day. He goes to the Dagobah beach and begins practicing by picking up things and training his body. When he's trained enough to put the point for the next 5 months where his body is physically strong, after that, he begins utilizing hand seals that he learned and practices doing hand seals at fast rates. He learns how to do the transformation jutsu almost perfectly, the clone jutsu, as well as some more advanced jutsus. He's learned the shadow clone jutsu, and he's also learned the air wind bullet jutsu. There's quite a few other ones in there that he saw as well, something called the Chidori and the Rasengan, but he doesn't have enough time now, as there's only 1 month left for him to train before the events of the UA High entrance exam. For the next month, he begins practicing this thing called chakra control, which the Sage of Six Paths had told him about when he was in his vision. If he uses his chakra in specific parts of his body, he can stick to life energy, as well as learn how to use this life energy to connect to himself. He doesn't exactly know what this next part is called, but something to him rings a bell when he hears when he was told he was called the Sage of Six Paths. Naruto begins practicing climbing up trees with his Quirk. Bakugo sees him doing this and thinks that it's really kind of cool, but also he won't ever tell him to his face and says that he's weird. They still have that rivalry after all. Deku, after training his Quirk for the next 10 months, goes to the UA entrance exam. When he gets there, he's physically strong, and he doesn't fall, and his attire is completely different when he gets there. He's not wearing a tracksuit like in the original. Instead, he's wearing a jumpsuit just like Naruto wore back when he was a kid. And he got this suit, and it's his own tracksuit, just as a nod to Naruto. Even though he never met him, and it's not actually his choice, but he had this in his closet instead, so he wore that. When he gets there, he doesn't trip or fall, and instead he stands up and he's more confident. And when he does fall, after Bakugo rattles him, he uses his chakra control and easily sticks to the ground and stands back up. Uraraka is surprised that he could do that actually and says that her name's Ochaku Uraraka, and asks what his name was. Him blushing because a girl's talking to him says that his name is Izuku Midoriya. And then they say hello and good luck on the exams. Naruto walks into the exams with everyone else, and then it begins. When they're explained about the writing exam and also the physical exam, Deku thinks that he'll be fine on both. When Deku gets into the writing exam, he easily pretty much gets about an 80%, which is still pretty good, as he didn't train much mentally except for the chakra control and meditation, which he thinks must have helped him work on his mental and as well as physical capabilities. As soon as they get to the physical exam with the robots, he sees Ida there, and he's about to go talk to Uraraka when Ida stops him. He looks at Ida and asks what's wrong, and then Ida tells him that he can't go to talk to her, he'll distract her. Then it all begins. Naruto speeds past Ida using his chakra to enhance his physical strength, just like the Lady Tsunade had done. That was what he had done for the last month before training. And he has sort of a botched version of that, but he uses it for speed. When he does that, he gets in and he starts hitting robots. At this point, he's mastered throwing kunai and is using his chakra to enhance his strength. When he does this, he uses his shadow clone jutsu to make 3 clones of himself, and even more of them. They all run out and they begin to fight and destroy robots. This all is fine and is going well, when eventually the giant 0-point robot comes. The 0-point robot's about to crush Uraraka, who screams, and he sees her. When he sees that she's about to be crushed, he jumps with all of his strength, and then he raises his fist up, and he puts his hand seals together, and he screams, "Multi-Shadow Clone Jutsu, Air Bullet style!" And then all the Shadow Clones, he casts 10 of them, all shoot air bullets at the monster-sized robot. The air bullets shatter into the robot, and it pushes the robot back all the way until it falls to the ground. He lands safely and does a ninja roll, just like how a ninja back in Naruto would. When he lands, he says to Uraraka and asks if she's okay. She says that thank you for helping her out, and that was really awesome how he did that, and asks what his quirk is. He was about to answer before he passes out, realizing that he ran out of chakra reserves for using that much energy on all of his shadow clones. When he passes out, the healing medics pick him up and take him back. A few days later, afterwards, Deku is given the letter from UA High. When he receives the letter and opens it, immediately a hologram of All Might comes out and says congratulations to him, and that he got 4th on the entire entrance exam, and that he did amazing. He says that welcome to UA High, and immediately Deku begins to cry and is super happy for himself. His mom is super proud of him and says that she's happy for him that he can fulfill his dream of becoming a hero. When they're deciding what kind of costume he wants, he decides that he should submit a costume for one that he thinks would be suitable. He immediately decides to go with the traditional garments of one of the ninja hidden in the leaf, as that's what Sage 6 Paths and all the scrolls had depicted to him of befitting of someone who used chakra. And when he does this, he gets a vest with ninja tools and the pants and shoes just like Kakashi would or any of the other ninja. When he shows his mom his new outfit, when he gets it before, she thinks it's super cool and says that he looks just like a real ninja. This makes him smile and laugh a little as he says that she'd have no idea. As he walks towards UA High for his first day of school, what will come to pass with Aizawa and homeroom? Last episode, Deku has shown that he has the abilities to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu, the normal Clone Jutsu, nothing else yet, but he's been seen working at some scrolls and working on some stuff. As well as he now has Hagoromo's 6 Paths chakra, which he doesn't know how to use yet, but Hagoromo passed it on to him, both Indra and Ashura's chakra. Since after Chakra stopped being in humans, he had to reincarnate, and Deku had Chakra, so he has both halves of Indra and Ashura. We'll get back to that. But anyway, Deku now walks into his UA High first exam day. He walks in hoping to be confident and puts on a brave face. When he walks into the building, he opens the door just a tiny bit, just a crack, and then he hears instantly arguing and yelling. He walks inside to see Katsuki Bakugo, his best friend Kachan, of course, and Ida Tenya, the kid who told him to not talk to Uraraka in the training exam. So he walks over and greets both of them, and Bakugo tells him to shut up, nerd, and he can't even believe that he got into UA. Then Ida looks at Deku and says, "Oh, hello, you were super fast, and it was so cool to watch you use your quirk, and how does that work, actually?" He begins to question Deku, who begins putting his hands up incredulously as to try and avoid this conversation for now. Then Uraraka walks in the door behind him, and Deku turns around and waves. Uraraka says, "Oh, right, what's your name again? Green hair boy?" He tells her his name as Izuku Midoriya, and she says that's really suiting for you. Then Aizawa comes rolling into the scene. Naruto, instantly recognizing the true mastery of a ninja, as he rolls in through his sleeping bag form and declares, "If you don't care about this class, this is a class, stop mingling." Deku, immediately in awe of his beautiful ninja prowess, immediately begins to write notes while tearing up, thinking it's perfect timing. Then Aizawa gets up and tells them that they're going to be doing an exam first day to see who gets to stay at UA. Deku stops writing his notes. He looks up and says, "What?" Then Aizawa smiles. He says, "Everyone here's quirk is only so good. On a scale of 1 to 10, perhaps one person's quirk is maybe a 5, and maybe one person's quirk has a 12. But hey, who knows unless we try it out. So let's screw that orientation stuff and let's get down to business." He pulls out the gym uniforms and says that they should change into these, then head outside for the exam. Deku changes into the sports uniform and then heads outside. After everyone's outside, they begin their races. First is the 50-kilometer run. Deku uses chakra to amp himself, like what we talked about last time, pushes forward, and actually gets there in about maybe 2.5 seconds, which is pretty quick, actually, compared to most of the other people. So Aizawa naturally thinks that he has some sort of speed quirk. After that, he then sits out for a while and watches Bakugo and everyone else, contemplating how else he could use chakra to perhaps boost his natural stats as well as other things. It's his turn next again for the long jump. He decides he can use a shadow clone in order to do this one. He creates a shadow clone using the Kagebunshin no Jutsu seal. Then he pushes his feet off, and the shadow clone pushes him and throws him as far as it can, causing his long jump to be 20 feet. Pretty long, almost as long as Tsuyu's, who has a frog quirk. This impresses everyone, and now Aizawa's getting curious about what his quirk is, because he just saw this kid was super fast, and that he just now made some sort of clone of himself. So what was exactly his quirk? He began to watch him more closely. As soon as the ball throw came up, well, not the ball throw. Let's go back to the hand grip challenge. Deku does pretty good, about 100 pounds of force, which is maybe half of what the long arms dude can do, which is pretty cool. He does not fail that either, so he's doing pretty decent right so far. Then comes the ball throw. Bakugo goes first and throws it, and it gets the same as the original, 713.2 something. Then it's Deku's turn next, as he's currently fourth, and everyone else before him is gone. Deku walks up to the plate. He holds the ball in his hand, and he begins to push Chakra into his hand. Now, at this point, Eraserhead activates his quirk in order to see what's going on. When he does this, Izuku immediately turns left and looks immediately into his eyes, and the only word he can think in his head is one thing: Sharingan. That's what he thinks it is. He sees the red glow in his eyes and immediately wonders if this person is an Uchiha or a Uchiha clan descendant, maybe over hundreds of years, and that this quirk that he developed is basically a Sharingan. He gets a little nervous to see if he can actually see his chakra pass. Eraserhead sees this weird faint glow around him, but nothing else. He can't turn it off either, which is really strange to him. He doesn't even know if it is a quirk, but whatever. He turns it off and tells him to continue, without any questions. Izuku does so, and then he puts all of the chakra that he can muster that he has left in his chakra pools into his right hand. He begins to shake his hand a little as he has a lot of energy charged into it. He then leans back and throws it. As he throws it, he then quickly makes a shadow clone, which he then pushes into the air, who then makes another shadow clone, as they ladder stack on top of each other, leaning towards the ball. Then, at the very top of 38 shadow clones, he grabs the ball out of midair flight and then kicks it as hard as he can, thus causing it to hit a solid 440 meters. Everyone is shocked that he just did this, and if that's even allowed. They then look at all of them as they topple down to the ground, and many of them poof, except for one. Deku gets up and breezes himself off and says that was fun. Then Uraraka goes and gets an infinite throw, causing her to have the number one score on that test. Everyone's test scores are all put together, and he's impressed with both Izuku, Bakugo, and Todoroki, and a lot of everyone else in the class. He decides not to expel anyone, even though Mineta was the lowest score, and tells them that it was a tactical reasoning. Then he continues to think about the strange reaction that Izuku Midoriya had to his quirk being activated. Izuku then, later that day, goes into his Hagoromo sage, area void to go talk to him. He asks him about Eraserhead's quirk and explains to him how it works. How when he looks at other people, he can, pause their abilities, and his eyes turn red, just like what he knows is to be called the Sharingan. Then Hagoromo, the Sage of Six Paths, tells him that it's very possible that there was maybe one or two few Uchiha or even maybe Senju survivors. He then explains to them about their DNA and how, if Chakra were applied, he could probably unlock some of the latent abilities. And this begins Deku's hunt for Senju cells as well as to gain Uchiha cells. Hagoromo tells him about how he can extract the cells of these two clans, and it will give him immediate and high chakra boosts, as well as certain special abilities. Deku decides that he's not going to do this, as that's not something a hero would do, but he keeps in the back of his mind, as if the need ever comes to it, and he has a need for the power to protect the people that he needs to be a hero, he might have to do something about that. Then he goes to sleep. The next day, he goes to UA, and begins the UA battle examination of All Might. If you guys want to come back next time to see how Deku, now knowing that he can acquire certain abilities if he can find them, fights against Bakugo, as well as utilizing Chakra and some of the new jutsus that he'll be learning. Yo, what's up everybody? It's me, the Weeb here, back with part 4 of What If Deku Could Use Chakra. We got some suggestions for below and some other things. A lot of people were talking about wanting a tailed beast or a Kekkei Genkai or something. But honestly, I just if enough people really want that, then maybe we can do something like that. But I don't really think it's necessary, because Chakra itself with jutsus are so powerful already. The Rasengan, you don't even need a Kekkei Genkai or anything in order to be able to do, and that's already super destructive. And there's so many other like techniques and things from Naruto that I was gonna focus on more to make it more important, because like Deku doesn't the point of like I said it in last time, like I'm trying to make the story different with my what ifs than most other people, more like fan fiction-y kind of, because like if you add some of these elements, it really changes the overall like universe of the story. So like the whole point is that Deku is like this almost savior kind of got like chakra Jesus almost, which now they say that's kind of funny, but if he had like a Kekkei Genkai or something, it would kind of like lower the point of the what if of him having chakra, because like some people have already done like what if Deku had like a Sharingan or something, and I don't want to do something like that, and like I kind of want to do my own thing with that. But if everyone like who watches this, because this is for you guys to like keep you guys entertained, if you want Deku to get like a tailed beast or something, by the way, like the tailed beast, that's coming in like, you know, the Overhaul arc. That this story will have something to do with that later. But anyway, I digress. Let's just get into the story. If you guys have any suggestions for the series or any others of my series, make sure to comment below or go on my discussion tab and tell me. So yeah, let's just get right into the story. So last time Deku and Uraraka are put against Ida and Bakugo in a fight. Deku just realized at this point that if he can find Senju DNA, or someone who, well, like, let's say his sensei, Eraserhead, who has the DNA of an Uchiha, he could possibly acquire the powers of their former powers using chakra. His current objective, however, is to beat Bakugo and Ida, so he puts this in the back of his mind for now. Deku rushes forward into the into the tower with Uraraka. He then tells Uraraka while they're walking down the hallway his plan. He tells her that he'll take Bakugo out, as Bakugo will definitely go after him first, and he'll use a Shadow Clone to distract Bakugo, while him and Uraraka go to the top and confront Ida. Uraraka says that this is a good plan, and suddenly Bakugo shoots around the corner. Deku's eyes wide as he didn't think Bakugo would get to them so fast, and he barely has time to use a substitution jutsu to pull him and Uraraka out of the way. As Deku and Uraraka appear on the other side of the hallway and a wood block falls in place where he was, Bakugo grits his teeth and turns around to look at Deku. Deku then pushes Uraraka down the other hallway behind him and tells her to run. Bakugo rushes forward at full speed towards Deku. Deku at this point makes hand seals. He makes a few complex hand seals that he hasn't tried before, and then weaves his hands together. He pulls the air back into his lungs and breathes outward. As he does, a ball of fire erupts out of where he was and shoots towards Bakugo. This gets Todoroki's attention, who is in the stands and thinks this is interesting. Once Bakugo sees this wall of flame going towards him, he then blasts with as much strength as he can muster to the side of the wall and dives into the hole so he doesn't get flamed. Then 3 Dekus come running out of the smoke and punch towards Bakugo's face. Bakugo rushes backwards away from the Shadow Clones, and the Shadow Clones keep going towards Bakugo. As Bakugo is getting attacked by Deku's clones, Deku begins weaving a long line of hand seals. He continues weaving hand seals for about 3 minutes. Once he finally has all the hand seals done and Bakugo just finished completely deleting his clones, he then has his hand out and he tells Bakugo if he dares to come and attack him. As Bakugo rushes towards Deku then takes his hands and he says, "Oh, here we go." He then clasps his hands onto the ground, and a wall of earth using the mud wall rock jutsu erupts, blocking Bakugo's path. Bakugo is now blocked on all 4 sides by the mud wall, and has to break through the wall. Deku then takes this opportunity to run out of the area and find Uraraka and Ida. Once he gets up there, he uses Shadow Clones to distract Ida as well as get to the bomb. He throws a shuriken that is actually a transformation jutsu version of himself at the bomb. Ida barely has time to rush and try and get in front of it, while Uraraka runs around the side of the clones and then gets in and touches the bomb. Ida is cursed at the luck that he had to fight the person who has the most versatile abilities in their class. Deku then raises his hand and smiles to Uraraka, saying that they did it. Uraraka tells Deku that his skills were amazing when he took Bakugo and Ida both like that, and she wished he could have helped more. Deku tells her that her skills are amazing too, and that they wouldn't have won without her, as he was about to run out of his chakra anyway, after using so many jutsu. That's what he's thinking, at least. He then heads out, and then All Might continues with the rest of the exams. Ida and Deku are tied for the most the MVPs of the assessment, as Deku had both managed calmly without destroying the building, taking out the villain, as well as being able to use his other abilities to help his ally get the bomb. The next day, Eraserhead is telling the class about how they're going to the USJ. As Deku smiles, knowing that the next day they go to the USJ, he isn't expecting the darkness to come and fall upon them. The class gets on the bus that morning, not expecting what's going to happen that day. As Deku walks into the UA room, he sees the quirk user who has a quirk called Black Hole. He thinks of the Shinra Tensei of what the Crusader 6 class told him and thinks this is cool. He then is looking around when suddenly a portal appears. He sees this portal and his eyes open wide. The sound comes through as a guy with hands on his face and body walks through and tells him that he's part of the League of Villains. A buff black person with a huge brain sticking out of their head with a bird-looking face walks out behind him, making a almost squawking sound. Deku's eyes widen more as he turns to see what his classmates are doing. Everyone is shaking in fear. Aizawa then puts his mask over his face and tells 13 to protect the students. Deku stops being scared and tells Aizawa that he'll help him. Aizawa looks towards Deku and tells him that he's got this one and that he shouldn't underestimate his teacher. Deku gulps and then watches his teacher rushes down into the battle. Deku feels useless at this point, and he feels uselessness. As he rushes down towards the stage, he then is stopped by the portal guy, aka Kurogiri. Kurogiri then tells the students that he's going to teleport them away, and then this is when the plan to get Ida out of the building happens. Ida escapes the USJ from Bakugo and Kirishima's help to hold down Kurogiri. Then Kurogiri uses the portals and teleports all the students to their respective locations. Tsuyu and Deku are in the same position as before, and then this is the point where Deku comes up with a plan. He tells Mineta and Tsuyu his idea. He's going to form a fireball jutsu and then shoot it into the water. He's then going to use his air bullet jutsu to push all of them over to the shore. Tsuyu will use her tongue to hold him and Mineta so that way they get enough force to be shot over to shore. When they tell them this, Deku then thinks of another idea. He tells them that he actually has the ability to walk on water too. He tells them if they need to and they have to fall back, he can carry them across and run across to get out of there. Tsuyu tells them that they can try either of the plans. Deku then shoots a fireball jutsu into the water, erupting and causing a lot of steam. He then jumps off the boat and Tsuyu and Mineta do the same. Then, Deku shoots an air palm bullet after he creates the hand seals into the water, causing a tornado which pushes him up into the air. Tsuyu grabs him and uses the momentum to spin and pull her, Mineta, and Deku off to the shore. Once they get up, all the villains are stopped using Mineta's balls, which he had thrown into the water just to stick them all together. They were trapped and the other three had made it to safety. Deku is now sneaking along the ridge, almost silent as he steps. He sees Aizawa be fighting against the villains, when suddenly the main villain, the guy with the hands, tells this creature called the Nomu to take him out. Nomu grabs Aizawa and throws him to the ground, even with him erasing his quirk. As Aizawa is about to be crushed, Deku sees this. His eyes widen, and as the Nomu stomps on his face, one of Aizawa's eyes actually comes out of his head, and he begins to spurt blood. Deku has an idea. He thinks about what the Sage 6 Path says, and he says this is the only way to save them. He reaches forward and picks up Aizawa's eye. He then, as Tsuyu and Mineta watch in horror, rip out his own left eye and plant Aizawa's Sharingan into it. Immediately, Aizawa's typical red eyes when his quirk is activated is turned on, and it changes. It begins to form Tomoe from the chakra that is now being infused into the quirk from long ago Uchiha generations. Aizawa can't see anything, but he sees a red light as Deku uses this Sharingan that he's borrowing from Aizawa. He then activates the Sharingan of his chakra and stands up. He tells Tsuyu and Mineta to get back and that he has this. He walks calmly towards the Nomu as the Nomu looks up and then the guy with the hands, aka Shimura, tells him that he's gonna die. The Nomu rushes towards Deku and throws a punch faster than anyone can see him. Deku is immediately behind him, and he has a chop to the back of the Nomu's neck. The Nomu falls for a second, then gets back up and begins to fight Deku. Deku and the Nomu are almost even in speed and power, while Deku has his 3 Tomoe Sharingan. As Deku is using the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, he begins to copy the Nomu's movements and strength and regenerative and see how he's doing it. He's using his chakra abilities as well. He summons a fireball jutsu that burns the Nomu. He then rushes back, uses an air palm jutsu to push him back. Aizawa is on the ground bleeding and cupping his empty eye. He's just hoping that the kids are safe and hopes that they're fine. As Deku keeps fighting, eventually All Might arrives and sees that this student is actually on par with the Nomu. The Nomu continues to fight against Deku, and Deku then finally gets hit. Deku goes flying back, and 3 of his ribs on his right side are broken. He coughs blood, and his Sharingan deactivates, returning to Aizawa's normal eye state, which is black and the same color as Deku's for conveniency. Deku looks like back to normal, and he's bleeding again. He then tells All Might what's going on and says that they need help. All Might rushes into battle and begins fighting the Nomu, but he then punches the Nomu, shooting into the air, and then crushes it back into the ground, beating the Nomu. All Might is then smiling as he sees that Deku, reigniting his Sharingan, can see that All Might just landed 500 blows on the Nomu. He then tells the students that he has heard these words before, but he doesn't know what they really mean. He pulls his fist back and puts every ounce of the flames left of One For All he has left it within him and shoots it forward into a fist. As he punches the Nomu one final time, he screams plus ultra, and the Nomu goes flying out of the stadium. Tomura Shigaraki is then suddenly gonna attack All Might. All Might's about to poof when Deku finally realizes what's going on. He can see using the Sharingan now what's happening to All Might's quirk, and he then rushes forward and then blocks Shigaraki from All Might. He uses a wind air palm jutsu to slash towards Tomura Shigaraki. This blows one of the hands off of his face. Tomura Shigaraki covers his face with his other hand and curses the kid and tells him he's going to kill him. That's when all of the other heroes arrive that Ida had summoned, and they fight him back until Kurogiri and Tomura escape. All Might poofs back to normal and Cementos has blocked him sufficiently. Then, Deku rushes back to Aizawa and then pulls out Aizawa's Sharingan eye. He puts the Sharingan eye back into Aizawa's skull and uses Chakra to actually reinforce it. Aizawa can feel this, but can't see anything. He wonders if this is perhaps the old lady doing her healing. He doesn't realize what's going on, but his quirks actually changed a bit. Later, he'll realize that he has 2 quirks now, since Deku gave him some Chakra in the eye when he gave it back to him. Deku puts his own eye back in and it recovers perfectly. Now that Deku has his eye back in, he looks towards his friends. Tsuyu and Miyata are basically scared that Deku just ripped eyes out and fought that big Nomu guy that All Might took down. They then think that Deku's awesome and tell him that he did a good job. Bakugo, seeing the whole fight, thinks that Deku must have cheated in some way. They then all head back and the police come and they begin hearing about the League of Villains. Last time, Deku used Aizawa's Sharingan, pre-Sharingan eyes that are devolved version of the Sharingan, and then re-evolved them to one of them to Sharingan with his Chakra. He then gave Aizawa his eye back after helping fight the Nomu, and after the League of Villains has been defeated and pushed back, let's get right back into the story. After the rest of Class 1A had been interrogated by the police officers determined that there was no more information they could get about Tomura Shigaraki or anyone of the League of Villains other than this Kurogiri person who seems to be quite a key point to their operation. They asked Deku about thanking him for defending the other students and using his power to do that. All Might as well thanks him for helping out everyone else while he wasn't there, and tells Deku that he did a really good job. This makes Deku proud of himself, and he tells All Might he'll continue to do his best to make the world a better place. At that point, then Deku goes back to the class after the 1 week of break. During the 1 week before everything gets back into motion for school, Deku was doing some more research and going into meditation and trying to practice absorbing chakra faster. At this point, he's basically begun developing Sage Mode. As he trained during that week for about, let's say, 4 hours every day. He sat outside by a tree and was working on absorbing nature energy. Because he has a crap ton of chakra, because all the chakra has been condensed into the plants, so any chakra that's residual chakra has just gone into Deku so he can use it. He's been able to practice doing the Sage Mode training much better than someone back in the Naruto universe would have been able to. Anyway, let's get back to class. So, once Deku gets back to his classroom, Aizawa-sensei tells them about the sports festival. At first, Kirishima, as well as some other people, are wondering if it's such a good idea to do that right after a villain's attack. Then, Aizawa explains that if they show any weakness after an attack like that, then it might just provoke more villains into doing stuff like that. So they all agree to go into the sports festival. After everyone is agreeing to do it, and everyone's getting pretty excited about it, Deku begins wondering if he can use his new technique he had been working on during the last week in this new exam. He asks Aizawa-sensei how much time they have before the sports festival. He said the sports festival will be in 2 weeks, and that the next 2 weeks they'll be continuing classes as normal. Deku begs his mom pretty much to take off one of the days of those each week. She agrees, and Deku is missing for 2 of those days on sick. Deku, throughout the week, goes to class, and when he gets home, he begins working harder on this technique he'd been working on. Basically, he's been training to absorb nature energy. At this point, he's been working on techniques like the Shadow Clone Jutsu and some other things. He is actually training right now to increase his overall skills rather than some specific techniques. His next idea after he can acquire Sage Mode is to work on some more long-range techniques that he can use. But for now, Sage Mode's been playing difficult for him. It's been really hard for him to separate his own chakra from the nature energy, as most chakra now is just nature energy. So, as Deku's been trying this, he actually tried to contact the Sage of Six Paths again for some advice. The Sage of Six Paths, as he had told him, gave him some of his chakra already, and tells him to use that. So Deku taps into his Sage of Six Paths chakra, and he actually taps into Sage Mode. He taps into his perfect semi-perfect Sage Mode, where he looks kind of, we're gonna do for this Sage Mode, because he's not doing frog training, he's actually gonna have like a wood-style Sage Mode, because like I said, he was training by those trees. As he does this, the black markings of that Hagoromo had appeared on his face, and he realizes that he's absorbing nature energy from the plants. So he calls it his his Sage Mode. So he works on this for those 2 days and the weekends before the sports festival, and he's pretty much got the hang of using perfect Sage Mode for about maybe 5 minutes every day, one time per day. Now that he knows he has this ability, he decides he's going to save it for the very important fights that he has to do. They all start the sports festival the same as the original with the race. As soon as the race begins, then Deku begins charging and charges chakra into his legs, making him go faster and stronger. As he speeds ahead of everyone else, Ida, him, Bakugo, and Todoroki are all ahead of the rest. As Deku's dodging Todoroki's blasts of ice and Bakugo's explosions, he uses Shadow Clones and normal clones mixed in to just take back the rest of the competition. He leaves them behind and has them hold back people in a big crowd barrier like a squadron of police officers. He then uses his kunai that he has and throws them into the ground with explosive tags, causing explosives on the ground to form with chakra and create more of a rougher terrain for the people to run on. He continues running and then uses some of his ninja tools that he has in his costume. He pulls that out of his Konoha Chunin vest and throws wire over the robot. He pulls himself over the robot, and then just as the ice begins to spread across it, he continues running, and Todoroki and Bakugo are right on his tail. He then uses 50 Shadow Clones that all run backwards towards Bakugo and Todoroki. Bakugo blasts these clones out of the way and continues running while Todoroki freezes them in place, causing them all to poof. As they keep running, Deku thinks of what else he can possibly do. He then charges chakra into his fist and slams it into the ground, causing stone to erupt behind him, just like Gon does when he's fighting Hisoka. As he continues running, the stone gets in front of Todoroki and Bakugo, causing them to slow down, just like what Gon does with Hisoka during their fight. Just so you can have some imagery in your head. Continuing on with that, though, Deku continues running and actually gets in first place. He gets the the million point headband, and forms a team. People want to be on Deku's team as they actually know that he has some pretty decent skills for evasion, sneaking, and speed, as well as strength. His team in this timeline will be, let's say he'll have, Dark Shadow will stay on his team, Uraraka, I think Ashido and Kirishima might stay. Well, let's say, yeah, Mina would go on to this team with the acid, and then Uraraka would stay on the team. So let's keep the team pretty much the same, except instead of having the girl who has the quirk with the eyes, with the eagle eyes and the inventions, instead we're gonna have Mina Ashido. Basically, what their plan is Mina will create a huge acid rain around them, while Deku uses shadow clones and has them go out of the area to go and take the other people's headbands. Dark Shadow will protect them from melee, and Uraraka will make them all of them lighter, as well as make them float into the air so they can move around and evade. Deku uses this chance to create shadow clones, and they all head out. Deku begins taking points from a lot of other teams, as well as having the $1 million headband still. Todoroki and Bakugo are actually getting pissed off at Deku and start trying to take him out, like teaming with each other in order to take him out. As they approach Deku, however, Deku looks at them and then he breathes in and out. He then charges Chakra into his hand and then thrusts his hand forward in a wind gale palm. The burst of air shoots towards them and pushes them back. They're surprised as Deku hasn't used this technique before, and they all fall over. They then get back up and try to hurry to get other teams so they can get some points. Then, at the last moment, Bakugo, who has acquired enough points after taking some of Monoma's points, the clone guy, he rushes towards Deku and tries to take him out. At this point, Uraraka uses her quirk and they move out of the way. At that exact moment, the bell rings and Deku is in the top lead, so let's just say all the people who were in the original are still there, and let's get right into the fighting part. So, all the same fights pretty much happen with Uraraka versus Bakugo and everyone else's fights. Except for the difference is Shinso and Deku's first fight. Deku and Shinso meet each other on the field, and Shinso tries to use his conversation thing on Deku. Deku doesn't respond and instead just makes shadow clones who all rush at Shinso. Shinso can't defend against this, 4 shadow clones, and he then gets pulled out of the arena by shadow clones. At that point, Deku then deactivates the clones and helps him up and tells him it was a good match. He then leaves the arena, leaving Shinso feeling more depressed than he had before the match started. Then, all the other fights go pretty much the same, until the point where Todoroki and Deku have their fight. When Todoroki and Deku stand off against each other, Todoroki tells him he's gonna go all out. Deku nods and tells him he won't expect any less. He tells him he's gonna unveil a new technique he'd been saving just for him. Todoroki's eyes widen as Deku ultimate breathes in and activates his trump card. His eyes open wide, and as a pigment of black surrounds his face, creating the markings. He's in Sage mode. At that point, he and Todoroki are not on the same level anymore. Deku blitzes towards Todoroki as Todoroki tries to defend with ice. And at that moment, Deku sticks his arm out and completely clotheslines Todoroki, causing him to gasp for air as he falls back to the other side of the arena. He then, walking towards Todoroki slowly, charges up the nature energy that he has. He only has 3 minutes left before he times out. He then rushes at Todoroki and then charges up Chakra in his hand. As he charges up Chakra, he tells Todoroki to go all out and that the fire is his power, not his father's. Todoroki activates that ultimate ice flame technique, and just as he's about to shoot it, a blue energy swarms the entire arena. Then, you see it in Deku's hand, the Rasengan. As he holds out the Rasengan and Todoroki screams, he says, "Deku!" Well, that's Bakugo's voice. Todoroki says, "Izuku, Midoriya." And then Deku, who sticks his right hand out with the Rasengan, says, "Todoroki, Rasengan!" He then pulls the Rasengan out from behind him and throws the Rasengan into the blast. The Rasengan, filled with nature energy and chakra, begins to overpower Todoroki's and overwhelms him. The Rasengan, growing in strength as it moves forward, takes out Todoroki, and Todoroki's blast into the opposite wall. Deku falls to the floor as his Sage Mode deactivates, just hitting the 5-minute mark. He won't be able to use that again, and he also used a lot of chakra to use that Rasengan. He then, as he is pretty much knocked out, is called a tie. As it's called a tie, this is really not good for Bakugo, because Bakugo gets really pissed off. And then Bakugo fights Ida and Dark Shadow, and Bakugo is number 1 without having really any competition from either of his rivals. Bakugo's pissed off, everything ends, and a certain villain in the background is fighting Tenya Ida's brother, and he leaves blood stained in that hallway. Ida gets a call on his cell phone, and he hears about what happened to his brother. His eyes darken, and he looks out at the sports arena and begins to turn as he walks into the darkness. Blood sprinkles as it sprays over the camera. As from our perspective, we see Tenya Ida's older brother as he's being brutally murdered and stabbed by the killer known as Stain. Stain would be laughing as he yells about all these fake heroes proclaiming themselves to this world as bringers of justice and peace, when in reality they're all money-grubbing liars. He will continue this as he stabs a knife into Tenya's brother's spine. As this takes place, suddenly we see some heroes rush around the corner, as Stain knows he can't take them all. He rushes away as he leaves the body behind, as the camera darkens. We see Tenya Ida walking around he looks rather worried. We then see Deku. Deku can sense that the chakra inside of Ida is actually seemingly worried, as he had gotten a call earlier, but he hadn't heard what it was about. Hey Ida, are you okay? You can tell us about anything, Deku and Uraraka would say as they'd walk towards Ida. Ida would make a fake smile as he tells them that there's nothing wrong, as he says that he has his own stuff that he has to worry about with family business. Ida would have gotten the call by now that his brother had been brutally injured in the attack from Stain, and now he was rather worried about him. Ida would immediately leave to go and visit his brother in the hospital to see if he was alright. As now that Ida was gone, the rest of the sports stadium was all heading out. As the UA Sports Stadium is finally cleared out and everyone gets back to their classes with the students returning back home, everyone takes a sigh of fresh air as the next portion of UA's yearly semester schedule would begin. With now everyone who from the sports festival being hired to go on their own work studies, with Deku not receiving any work studies offers except for one, while Ida on the other hand had chosen a very specific city, Hosu City, for one purpose: revenge. We have a small flashback to see when Ida had visited his older brother at the hospital. Ida, his older brother would say, when you go for your work study, I want you to pick your hero name as Ingenium. Ida and the rest of the heroes now, the hero students, would be picking their names in class. This took place a few days before all of them would be sent off on their work studies. Ida hesitated and didn't pick his name as Ingenium, and simply left it as his own name. Deku's turn, on the other hand, or Midoriya, was still deciding on what he wanted to be called. He was thinking about having it have something to do with his chakra, or being a shinobi, as, unlike everyone else here, he actually knows the history of quirks and where they came from. He thinks on it for a while, until he's the last one left. When he's finally called upon by midnight and he walks up to the stage of his board, he finishes scribbling down the rest of his name. As now Midoriya lifts up his board, he shows that his hero name is going to be Kage. As he says this is his hero name, everyone, including me, thinks it's an excellent name. But now what we know is Midoriya, or now Kage, has shown a lot of abilities that shinobi or assassins would use. Kage was the name he just chose based off of what he had heard from Rikuto Sennin, or the Sage of Six Paths, and so he decided that it was a good name, because those were the leaders back during the old times, and he wants to become the strongest hero, to be a new leader. As he sits back down, worried about if his decision was the right one, we then snap back to reality, where we see that now Ida had left for his work study in Hosu. Midoriya would quickly run, as he tries to catch up with Ida before he leaves. He puts his hand on his shoulder as Ida turns around with dark eyes. And this is when he locks eyes with Midoriya, and Midoriya asks if there's anything he needs, and that he's his friend. Ida would nod and say that he's alright, as he walks away slowly into the darkness. We have another quick flashback as we see Midoriya's choice, and what he had to decide on what he would be doing for the next weeks that he'd be taking his training. As we all know, however, unlike the original, our Midoriya in this timeline does not possess One For All. Instead, he had let All Might go during the original sequence where they had met earlier that year. So, this means that Midoriya, we'll be calling him Deku, even though his hero name is Kage in this timeline. Deku would not be going to Gran Torino for training to harness One For All because he doesn't have One For All. Because in this version, now Mirio has One For All instead, which I believe would have happened in the original if Deku had not come into the picture. Anyway, getting back on topic, the two offers that Deku did receive, though, however, were from two very interesting parties. They are from the hero Edgeshot and the hero called Eraserhead. Deku would take the opportunity to learn as much as he can from Edgeshot, as Edgeshot is known as being a hero similar to what he hopes to desire, as he then takes up the opportunity to be trained by Edgeshot. When Midoriya gets to Edshot's HQ, or where his hero facility is, once he finally makes it to his official work studies area, Edshot, along with all of Edshot's fellow associates, welcome him into the building, as well as into the workplace itself. Deku would begin training immediately with Edgeshot, as Edgeshot would help him refine his speed, as well as with him having to use his hand signs. Him showing Edgeshot how his Quirk Chakra works, it has Edgeshot rather intrigued, as after seeing his techniques that he had used during the sports festival, he was rather impressed with what Deku could do, and decided that he should invite him there. The hero known as Kage's first mission under the work study of Edgeshot would begin as a reconnaissance mission. They were to begin investigating where they could find the Nomus from the incident before that took place during the USJ incident. Now, Deku would be sent on his mission with Edgeshot and some other subordinates of his, as they decide to look around some city areas to find some hangars. After a while, Kage, or Deku, will be addressing him as Deku just to make it simpler. Deku and the team would be heading around each city block as they jump from rooftop to rooftop. Deku's hero outfit, as I've stated before, looks like that of a shinobi. Deku is jumping from rooftop to rooftop when he sees a small building hidden between the crevice of two other larger ones. As he's using his chakra to stick to the walls, walking along the side, now with the cover of night defending him in his dark clothing, as he looks down, he would see that there would be a purple light coming from within the building. After going inside the building to check out what's going on, he would see through the glass on the outside that inside there were some large tanks. He would immediately report back to Edgeshot, who would take this into consideration and eventually report back to the Hero Association. Now that that's been covered, this is when Deku would have time to look at his watch and to check up on how everyone else is doing. He would send a text message to the rest of the UA's class 1A in order to see how everyone's doing, and everyone would be pretty either respond or say that they were doing well. Uraraka would send a picture of her doing her workout stuff with Death Gun. After that, and everything else, everyone else responds except for one person. Ida doesn't even show the rest of messages being read. Deku would think about this for a while and then remember what he had said back at the train station. Deku would ask Edgeshot if they were heading to Hosu City anytime soon. As it turns out, the Hero Association had a small location located inside of Hosu City. Edgeshot would agree with taking Deku with, but he has no idea of why he would want to, as Deku just tells him that he had to check up on one of his friends who was working there, as he hadn't responded for a long time, which was very much unlike him. He thinks back to how Ida usually is, with being reciprocative to pretty much everything. As Deku and Edgeshot have boarded the train, as they're driving along the countryside getting towards where Hosu is, suddenly a large crash can be heard as both Deku and Edgeshot leap into action, seeing the side of the train burst open as a white Nomu comes into the battlefield. They would now see that a Nomu has entered the city. Edgeshot would tackle the Nomu out of the way as he begins using his quirk to become needle-like and thread itself through it. He would tell Deku to get into the city to find if there was anything else and that he'd catch up with him later. Deku would nod as he covers his face with his mask and pulls the hood up over his head. Deku would begin climbing the wall of one of the buildings using his chakra footing, and as he gets to the top, he would then push chakra into his eyes to expand his vision of viewing. As he does this, he would look down into each alleyway between the buildings as he jumps around, hoping to find where Ida could be. He decides to need to borrow a jutsu that he had learned from a while ago, and decides to use the summoning jutsu. Deku bites the side of his finger as blood spills from the wound. He then slams his hand into the ground as the jutsu begins to unravel across the top of the building. "Summoning jutsu!" he would say as loudly as possible into the darkness, when suddenly a large poof of smoke comes and a hawk comes flying out of nowhere. Deku jumps on top of the hawk as they begin flying around the city. As he looks down, he then sees that the hawk can see anything through its vision. The hawk would then make a large chirping sound, as Deku would then see down there the large white shining armor of Ida. He would jump off the hawk as he desummons it, falling towards the ground below. Just as he's about to see the killer Stain, about to stab his blade into Ida, Deku would dive bomb just between Ida and Stain, as he pulls the kunai out quickly from his shirt and blocks the attack of the sword, defending it as it goes flying away from them. Midoriya? Ida would say as he sees Deku standing there in his full hero suit. Deku would quickly turn around and tell Ida to get out of there. Before Ida can say anything, however, the killer Stain begins to rush towards Deku. As Deku turns around just in time, he dives out of the way as this man's superhuman speed seems abnormal, and he wonders what his quirk is. He can sense the rage inside of this man as he begins to pull blades out, trying to kill him for taking his prey. He would then see that Deku tries to grab Ida as they try to escape and run away, worrying about saving them before trying to take him down. He would think that this boy is a true hero after seeing his actions. Deku, after trying to pull Ida away to safety, would turn around to see that that Stain had been waiting for him. As he turns back, Deku would pull out 2 kunai, which seemed to look like trench knives. As he pulls these 2 blades out, and as he walks towards Stain, he begins to charge Chakra into his hands and fills the blades to create Chakra blades. As he does this, he holds his hands up and tells Stain that he's ready to go. As Stain rushes towards him with his blade, Deku would then use aerodynamics as well as his chakra flow to push himself across each building and climb into the sky. Him and Stain would become an aerodynamic sync as Deku uses his blades to slice at Stain and cut his face while evading each attack. After a while, Deku decides he needs to finish this as he puts his blades away. He quickly begins charging Chakra into his hand as he begins spinning it to create the Rasengan. As he rushes forward towards Stain, Stain can see this blue ball of energy. Stain holds his sword up ready to cut the attack in half, and just as Deku shoves the Rasengan into Stain, the sword between it snaps from the Rasengan's power as it slams into Stain, causing him to go flying back and crash into a building wall, causing cracks to appear across it. This is when Todoroki would appear. Just as Deku had turned his back, Stain had licked some of the blood he had got off of a wound on his leg. Deku falls to the ground as he can't move, and Todoroki causes a blast of flame to save the day, shooting at Stain, causing him to go flying away, with his sword clattering to the ground as it falls out of his hand, skittering across the stone floor. This is when Todoroki would use an ice shield to block all his comrades, as now Stain has a wall of ice to get through. Stain would start shattering through the ice with his sword, as Deku would begin to recover, slowly being able to move again. Ida, now having fully recovered from Stain's blood paralysis, would get up as he sees the other hero who had been sitting there, who Stain was about to kill. He would grab this hero as Ida and him would begin to escape. Todoroki would be sitting there as Ida comes back, now having hit the other hero. Ida, Todoroki, and Deku would have to wait as the ice shield finally breaks and Stain comes back in full strength. Todoroki would ask if Deku has any chakra left for his attacks, and Deku would nod, saying he has about half of it still. Todoroki would say he'd support him from behind using long-range attacks, and that Ida can get in from attacks using his speed. Deku would get in front as the brawler. Deku charges his chakra and says thanks for the concern, as he begins to create shadow clones using the shadow clone jutsu. These clones begin rushing towards Stain, as Stain slices through each of them with a poof of smoke, causing them to cloud his vision. Deku seemingly comes out of nowhere as he appears behind Stain, with a Chidori in hands, and slices through Stain, seemingly. This was an afterimage, however, as Stain had jumped out of the way just in time, with his blood-red scarf left in place to distract Deku. Deku deactivates the Chidori as he turns around to see that now Stain was in the air. He creates an air bullet jutsu and shoots it towards Stain, which hits him out of the air as he feels damage in his lower left ribs. Stain would fall to the ground as Deku begins rushing towards, jumping off of each side of the building to gain speed. As Stain would then be kicked into the air by Deku, Deku would begin charging another attack. Deku begins charging Chakra into his hand as he creates the last Rasengan he can muster. The small blue ball of energy begins to form as it spins around with its perfect Chakra control. Deku looks to Ida as the two of them begin to build speed. Deku jumps on the wall as he begins using his Chakra control to run across it, and Ida uses his reciprocal burst to kick Stain. Suddenly, the Rasengan as well as the reciprocal burst connect into Stain's body as an explosion can be heard and seen across the area. Stain falls to the ground, left unconscious, as Deku falls down to the ground and lays there for a while, breathing heavily, feeling that all his chakra has been drained from using so many attacks in a row. Todoroki would pick up Deku and carry him on his back, asking if he's okay. He would nod as he asked how Todoroki had found them. Todoroki would say that on the app that they had installed each other's phones to track each other, he had seen that Deku had been moving to Hosa and assumed that he had been going to go check on Ida. Due to him being in Hosa as well for missions for reporting to the Hero HQ of an Endeavor, he had decided that it'd be better to go and check up on them, as it was odd to have him not respond like that. Deku would say thanks as the teammates would begin to head out. This is when we go over to see that Endeavor is taking care of some of the higher class Nomu, as well as Edgeshot taking care of the Nomu in the city. The League of Villains would now retreat as they don't want to get caught up in the fight, now seeing that Stan had been captured. The large gray Nomu with wings would grab Deku out of seemingly Todoroki's back as he begins to fly away. Todoroki, Endeavor, and the rest of the heroes, including Edgeshot, who had now met up, would be shocked to see Deku being carried away. Suddenly, Stan would reawaken as his intense bloodlust would cover the entire area. It almost paralyzed them as he leaps towards the gray Nomu and stabs it before he dies. Stan would use his body to cushion Deku's fall, as the crunching sound of bones would cause Deku to be worried about what had just happened. Deku would then be caught by Edgeshot as he rushes forward to pick him up and see he's alright. Deku would have a few broken bones from the attacks, but Stan would be completely dead. His left lung had been punctured by one of his shattered ribs after he had used that stunt to kill the Nomu that had been taking Deku. He'd be sent to the hospital to where his body would be taken care of further from there. At this point, Deku would say goodbye to Ida and Todoroki and say he'd meet them back at school, as he heads back with Edgeshot to return to Edgeshot's HQ. A few weeks have passed now, and all the students would be heading back to UA, as now the examinations for their work studies is over. Deku would have learned a lot during the past few weeks, as he had learned more taijutsu skills from Edgeshot than he had thought were possible, as well as he had used his chakra to mimic Edgeshot's quirk, which is a new ability he'd learned to pick up. After what he had heard from Rikido Sennin, that chakra had been what had eventually developed into individual quirks into each individual person, he decided that it might be a worthwhile test to see if he could copy quirks using his chakra. Now that Deku knows that he can use his chakra to mirror that of quirks, he has already practiced mastering and using Edgeshot's quirk, which allows his body to change into a smaller, more compact, needle-like version. Deku has used this many times to practice his aerodynamic movements, as well as to get better in general. Edgeshot's very proud of the development that Deku has learned, as well as the fact that he can do such incredible things with his very versatile quirk. Edgeshot would send Deku off and say that once he graduates UA, he's welcome to become a sidekick of his if he wants. This is when Deku would wave goodbye to his master and say he'd see him again. Now that Deku has returned to UA, this is when the final testing arc would begin. As now, Deku and his teammates and fellow students would have to take on their teachers to pass the examination. As the teams are being decided, it would be decided that Deku, the hero Kage, and Katsuki Bakugo, aka the hero Ground Zero, would be placed on the same team against All Might. As the two of them had both displayed rather versatile abilities that would maybe even stand a chance against All Might. All Might would see promise in Deku's ability in Chakra, and think that it has some very unique traits to it that he'd like to test in battle. As the two are finally put to the test against All Might, Bakugo would turn over as he makes an annoyed sound after seeing he's on the same team as Deku. "You better not get in my way, you damn Deku!" Bakugo would say with his grisly voice, being annoyed that he has to team up with this loser. Deku would sigh as he tells Bakugo that even if he doesn't like it, they're still on the same team anyway, and they're comrades, so they better do their best to get together out there. Deku would walk out onto the field with Bakugo as he pulls his hood and mask up over his face. Deku would, as he walks forward, be a bit different as he thinks about how he's going to defeat his favorite hero. As after he had grown up and learned about Chakra, his aspirations on heroes had changed a little bit. He still believes that it's good to have someone smiling out in the open as the large pillar of hope. But Deku also believes that it's important to have heroes in the shadows, those who can dive into the darkness and find those deep within it. Deku would begin going to an alleyway as he tells Bakugo that he'll be taking the sidelines for this, as he's going to go investigate and scout ahead to see if they can find All Might. Bakugo would tell him that he can do whatever he wants, as he begins to use his explosions to cover more ground as he flies forward. Deku would, as he climbs the building, would be sneaking through the dark alleyways he can search for All Might. As he eventually senses All Might's chakra signature, he would see that he's charging up an attack. He would warn Bakugo quickly by sending a kunai with a note tag on it, telling him that All Might was on his way. Bakugo would quickly grab the kunai and throw it on the ground, making a sound as he thinks about that stupid ninja. Deku would continue walking through the hallways of the backs of buildings as he eventually hears the explosion from One For All's remnants of All Might towards Bakugo. Bakugo would be shot back as All Might would wonder where Deku young Midoriya could have gone. Midoriya would come from behind as he slams the Rasengan to All Might's back. All Might seemingly turning around, slamming his hand into Deku. Deku suddenly falls to the ground, looking as if though he had died. All Might's worried as suddenly he poofs, showing the substitution jutsu as a wood block falls. Deku would suddenly appear from underground as he sticks his hands up and grabs All Might's legs, trying to pull him down using the headhunter jutsu. Just as All Might turns around, he smashes his fist into the ground, causing a large explosion in the ground. Deku's shadow clone would disappear. As Deku's on the building using binoculars to look down to see how All Might's doing, Bakugo would begin going in on the offensive, using a howitzer blast as he goes spinning in towards All Might and blasting him with explosions. Deku would think that only one teammate has to get through in order to succeed, and that if they can get through the gate, then it should be all over. Deku would then think that he also wants to try to take out All Might, though, and then he'll see if he can hold this out a little bit longer. Deku would use a summoning jutsu as he creates a falcon, which he jumps on as he rides high into the sky. Just as Deku is about to see Bakugo get slammed into by another attack of All Might, Deku would come soaring in on his hawk and grab Bakugo as he goes flying out of the way just in time. All Might would look up to see that Deku had summoned some sort of hawk beast, which was now flying through the air. As they continue moving forward, Deku would continue to try and avoid All Might's aerial attacks, as All Might goes using his One For All flying into the air to try and attack them. Deku would quickly create some paper bomb tags as he throws kunai back towards All Might, explosions hitting All Might in the air. Bakugo would take some of the paper tags as he has an idea. He says that he tells Deku to give him some of those stupid weird paper chakra tag thingies. Deku would quickly create some as he gives them to Bakugo, who would tape into his large gauntlets. He says he's going to blow All Might to smithereens as he takes the gauntlets off of his arms and tells Deku to get ready to throw them. He hands one gauntlet to All Might and tells Deku that they're going to throw those gauntlets at All Might, and that as he does so for him to use that one fire thingy he can do. Then Deku would say, "You mean the fireball jutsu?" Kachan would then say, "Whatever." As they both throw their gauntlets towards All Might, Deku would quickly create the hand seals as he weaves them and blows into the hand sign. Suddenly a ball of flames would come flying out of nowhere as it bursts into the two gauntlets, causing a large explosion across the sky. All Might would get blasted towards the ground as he slams into it, causing him to cough up blood, thinking that these kids are actually putting up an amazing fight. This is when Deku decided that they need to get out of the gate immediately. Bakugo would make an annoyed sound. He says, "Ugh, fine." The two of them would fly on their hawk as they get towards the gate, as they finally fly through it just as All Might's about to recover. All Might would get up as the two had passed, as the rest of the teams would take each of their individual tests. After all the teams had either passed or failed, Bakugo and Deku would be congratulated by All Might for putting up such a good fight against him, as well as Deku's and Bakugo's versatility of a plan, having Bakugo go in as the main bait while Deku used his versatile attacks to catch All Might off guard. Deku would say that he still couldn't have beaten him on his own, though, and that if Kachan hadn't been there was no way they could have taken the win. All Might would go on to explain that even in the hero industry, it's important to have teamwork, as sometimes you have to work with other rival agencies in order to get the work done, when villains are too strong or powerful for one alone. Kachan and Deku would look at each other before they look away again. All Might would sigh as he then says that they'll be sent on a training camp this summer to where they'll be beginning their next training to see how far they can evolve their quirks. All Might would leave as he reverts back to his normal self, coughing up blood. Deku and Bakugo would return back to Class 1A along with the rest of the people who had passed, and those who failed. This is when Aizawa would come into the door, having been fully recovered now with no bandages. He would then come in and say that all the teams had done very well, and that he had something he would like to show them that he believes would be very helpful for them during their training camp. He would activate his quirk as he creates his eraser eyes. Suddenly, one of them has a different shape than the other. His normal one is bright red, as it always had been. However, the one that Deku had borrowed for that second, and given back seemingly using some chakra healing, had grown into a different type of quirk. That's right. After chakra had been applied directly to Aizawa's quirk in his eyes, Deku had actually forcibly unlocked a secret, as Aizawa would be a long-lost descendant of the Uchiha. Aizawa would finally have his Sharingan awakened, to the point where they have 3 Tomoe from the chakra that had been pushed into them. Deku would be shocked as he sees a Sharingan, while the rest of the classmates would be confused as to what happened. Aizawa would say that his eyes had become his right eye, the one that he had been taken from him during the USJ incident. He would look at Deku. Would have become much more powerful now, as now he can actually copy movements as well as see ahead of the time of what they're going to do. This other eye that he has now, besides his normal quirk, still maintains the original ability of canceling out people's quirks. However, now he even has the ability to where it doesn't get dry if you leave it open for too long, as this right eye seems to have some sort of resistance to air and other types of attacks. Anyway, my main point is that what you guys need to do during this summer training camp is work on evolving your quirks, just as mine did. Aizawa would play this off as he shows that his quirk had evolved somehow during the fight during the UA. The rest of the students would be shocked and say that they think that they could actually evolve their quirks too. Bakugo would be super excited, thinking that he could probably gain some more cool explosion power, as all of them begin working extra hard. As everyone leaves for the day, excited for the summer training program that would be coming in a few months, Deku would be asked to stay as Aizawa wants to talk to him. Aizawa would ask what Deku had done to his eye during the USJ incident, as this is the first time he'd actually tried using his quirk after then, and this had happened. This is when Deku would explain everything to Aizawa, telling him about how he had pushed Chakra into his eye to make it more powerful, and that when he had used it during the attack, he had actually unlocked his Sharingan. The Sharingan? Aizawa would ask, as he has no idea what he's talking about. Deku would explain about how the history of the world had affected him and what his quirk is. He would tell Aizawa how Chakra had created quirks, and that because he had pushed Chakra into Aizawa's eye, he had reverted it back to its original form of what it would have been before it developed into a quirk, which was called the Sharingan, he would go on to say. Aizawa would be intrigued by this, as he then asked how he knows about all this. Deku would say he can't say, and Aizawa would nod, telling him and asking if there's anything else he should be able to know. Deku would tell him that he should be able to lower the amount of Tomoe in his eye, and that would change the effectiveness of it, as well as the use of stamina. Aizawa would then thank him and tell him that he should get ready for the training camp as well, as he thinks that there's some more abilities that he might be able to unlock using his quirk. Aizawa would ask how Edshot's training had gone with him, and Deku would nod, saying that it had gone well. Aizawa would be a little bit bummed out that he hadn't chosen to train with him instead, but Deku would say he didn't want to push Aizawa through anything, as he had known that he had been damaged from the USJ incident still. Deku would leave as he goes home and says hi to his mom, who he hadn't talked to in a while. Inko would be happy to see her son again as they spend the next couple of weeks together, just as if though nothing had happened during the past few months. Eventually the time comes, however, and all the students meet back up, as they now get on the bus on their way to the summer training camp. If you need a quick refresher of what happened last time, a link to part 6 will be in the description below. If not, then here we go. We are getting right into the part now. As Deku is getting ready to go on the trip to the summer training camp, he had thought about what Aizawa had told him. Last time they had met before summer had began, and now he was heading on his trip with his whole class of Class 1A to go and train. He had said that his power, his chakra, might be able to help others with their quirks. Deku would ponder this for a while as he looked out the window on the side of the bus. As they get towards the forest, they suddenly would stop, as Deku feels his entire body shift forward as he falls flat-face first into the seat in front of him, looking up to see Bakugo in front of him turn around all pissed off. Damn, Deku! Deku would look up at him, surprised, and say sorry as he leans back quickly. This is when Aizawa would climb up as he stands in the top of the bus at the front, and would say that they'll be stopping here as the beginning of their summer training camp would begin. They would all have questions as they get out of the bus when it begins to drive away. As they look around, they would suddenly see the 6 wild pussycats all standing around, as they had now been waiting for them for a little bit. Sorry to keep you waiting, Mr. Aizawa would say, as Deku watches as the wild pussycats would begin their actual training. They would then say if they all want to have dinner, then they'll need to get to the actual campsite across the forest before the end of the day. As soon as they say this and they then leave, this is when one of the wild pussycats, the blue one with the power to alter the ground, would put her paws on the ground as she begins to alter the ground beneath them. Suddenly, the entire cliffside begins to fall as the Class 1A students begin to fall towards the ground below. Deku, who quickly used a substitution jutsu to escape this, would be standing in the middle of the road as the rest of his students had fallen. Aizawa would tell Deku to get into the forest so he can make it there in time so he can actually eat dinner that day. Deku would say goodbye to the wild pussycats as well as Aizawa, as he would quickly pull up his actual hoodie's jumper as he pulls the hood up above his head.
He jumps off into the forest below, seemingly disappearing into the shadows. As he falls into one of the trees below, he lands on it and uses chakra to stick to the wood with his feet. He begins jumping from tree to tree and walking all across them, as he sees his fellow students down below. Minato would be throwing his purple balls at all these seemingly strange creatures, as Deku would then see that beneath him, there were all these strange mud-like creatures. Todoroki, Bakugo, and Sero were mostly dealing with these, while Kaminari and Jiro were standing in the back dealing with the leftovers behind. The rest of Class 1A were in between, dealing with any monsters they could while they moved forward slowly. Deku would say sorry as he decides to leave some assistance. He quickly creates 2 shadow clones which he leaves behind to help defend the rest of the class, as he continues moving forward throughout the forest. Deku would use his chakra to jump from tree to tree, having seemingly no danger. As the Wild Pussycats member would see that one of the classmates is actually moving incredibly fast. Aizawa would guess that it was most likely Deku, as his quirk is the most versatile one in the class. As Deku is jumping from tree to tree, he would eventually use another Shadow Clone Jutsu to grab onto the branch as he grabs its feet, swinging him high into the air. He sees the camp only maybe 300 meters away, and turns back to see that his classmates are very far behind, maybe an hour back. Deku would decide that he'll take a rest for a little bit as he sits down in the tree, waiting for the rest of his students to catch up a little bit. After a while, he would eventually stand up as he runs towards the campsite, jumping from tree to tree as he finally makes it, with seemingly no effort. As he makes it there first, he would run into Koda as well as the rest of the Wild Pussycats who would have already arrived. As Deku's the first to arrive, they would allow him to pick his dinner out first, as he gets to work on his plate. He sits down and begins eating, and by the time he finishes eating his dinner, the rest of the class would show up, with Bakugo being pissed off that Deku left them behind. Deku would quickly de-summon his shadow clones as they turned to poofs of smoke, saying he had left some protection behind. As Deku would yawn, saying he's going to go to bed, the Wild Pussycats would tell him, after they had already explained the information on the summer training camp to him, would tell him good night. Deku would head off to sleep as he goes towards the boys' dorms area that they'd be sleeping in for the camp. As Aizawa would be staying with the rest of the class, Deku would meditate for a while as he searches deep within himself and begins to feel all around him. Deku would eventually begin to feel a strange energy of nature energy, as he then quickly falls out of the state. Deku, who hasn't mastered Sage Mode yet, or even acquired it for that matter, doesn't exactly know what nature energy is. However, he can always go and ask, the Sage of Six Paths if he can go back to that cave where he originally discovered Chakra. But for now, he would leave it as an unsolved mystery. The next day would arrive and the training would begin, as Bakugo uses the training as he did in the original by sticking his hands in hot water to increase his sweat pore length as well as his explosion's radius. Deku would begin his training. Instead of doing physical training, he'd be meditating, as Deku's physical strength isn't exactly what makes his quirk stronger. He would have explained to Aizawa and the Wild Pussycats that his actual quirk is more of like he has a storage container of chakra, a certain amount that he can use, and by meditating he can increase the amount of chakra he can use, as well as it allows him to focus better on using his jutsu. As Deku would be sitting on the ground meditating, he would have Kaminari shooting electricity towards him, practicing his range and accuracy. As Deku practices moving out of the way without even opening his eyes, he would get used to sensing the energy that would come off of the attacks that Kaminari would be using. As one of the electricity is about to hit Deku right in the face, Deku would move out of the way immediately, rolling to the ground. Kaminari and Deku would practice this together, as they would be increasing both of their powers. The rest of the class would continuously do what they had done in the original, with no big difference too much. After several days of this training, Class 1B would have gotten a little bit up to pace as they had begun their own training. Now, with Deku having mastered his evasion of Kaminari's attack, he would ask Bakugo if he would like to do some sparring with him. Bakugo, who would be annoyed that this jerk Deku, who was always so weak, would determine that he could get to fight him. Bakugo would agree, however, as he wants to smush his face into the ground. As soon as Bakugo charges towards Deku, Deku would smile as he thinks about how Bakugo's abilities are similar to that of the ancient shinobi known as Deidara. As Bakugo blasts towards Deku, but tries to shoot an explosion directly into his face. Deku would slide underneath it as he bends his back backwards, using the headhunter jutsu as he goes underground. He grabs Bakugo's feet and pulls him under into the ground, where his head's only sticking out. As Deku pops back out of the ground, Bakugo would use his explosions to shoot himself out of the dirt, as he's now in the air. Bakugo would try to use his howitzer impact on Deku, but this doesn't work, as Deku easily uses a substitution jutsu to turn into a wood block, as Bakugo's attack hits into that instead of him. Deku would now be hiding in one of the further around trees that are surrounding where he and Bakugo were sparring. As Deku and Bakugo are looking for each other, precisely, Deku would finally catch an eye on Bakugo. He'd pull a shuriken out as he throws it towards Bakugo. Bakugo would hear something as he turns around and blasts the shuriken into metal shrapnel. What he didn't see, however, was there was a seal that was on the back of the shrapnel of the shuriken. As soon as this unseals, a shadow clone would pop out and punch Bakugo in the face, immediately poofing into dust. Bakugo, who would now be more pissed off, would now be looking around less analytically. Deku would take this opportunity to create a bullet jutsu. Wind style, wind bullet jutsu. As he forms the chakra in his hands, creating the bullet, he would then shoot it towards Bakugo as it hits him directly in the back of his shoulder. Bakugo would fall over as he tries to pull himself up. Before he can, however, Deku jumps out of the tree, leaping into the air as he begins rushing down towards Bakugo. Bakugo, this is my victory. Bakugo would then charge towards Deku as his explosion is about to meet Deku's Rasengan. As the Rasengan is about to clash into Bakugo's explosion, as the Rasengan pierces directly into Bakugo's explosion, a large burst of power and explosive hits both Bakugo and Deku as they go flying backwards, both of them landing in the ground. Bakugo would say he thinks that's enough for sparring for today, as Deku would agree, saying that was extremely powerful, and tells Bakugo that his explosions have gotten even better. Bakugo would make a sound of annoyance as he walks away, thinking that Deku's gotten stronger too. It just means he's gonna have to train even harder. The day had finally come. Now, the Wild Pussycats was going to have the entire group perform an active courage test, as the groups would be formed as they walk into the forest. Suddenly, a portal would open, as the League of Villains would wander out. Koda in this timeline, or version, wouldn't have attacked Deku, as Deku, who is a bit quieter, wouldn't have really introduced himself to him. However, Deku did notice Koda was there and would have asked the Wild Pussycats what had happened to him and if any of them were his parents. They would explain about what would have happened to Koda, as Deku is still a very kind-hearted person even now, and he would be worried about him. As the League of Villains had now entered the forest, with their new team of Dabi, as well as Muscular, and the other new villains having arrived, their first mission now being to capture Bakugo would have begun. As we now get into the forest, we would see that Deku would enter. As we get into the forest, we would begin to see that blue flames begin to sprout, as Dabi's attack would commence. Eraserhead would notice as well, using his new Sharingan ability, which has an even greater range of sight, that something is happening within the forest. He would call back all the teams, saying that they are not to fight in any circumstances unless absolutely necessary. As the teams begin to retreat, the event of which would happen in the original would occur. With Deku making it back first, he would see that one of the Wild Pussycats would be looking for where Koda went. He would have remembered that Koda had that special hiding place, and would tell her that he knows where he is, as Deku goes running off, using his chakra abilities to sense where Koda's life energy is. As he says that he'll bring him right back, they would trust Deku to deal with the job, with Aizawa telling Deku to not get hurt. As Deku goes running through the forest, he'd eventually see where Koda is standing, with blood on his face. This would cause Deku to feel rage, as we see Muscular about to crush Koda beneath him. No way! Suddenly, Deku uses a substitution jutsu, as he grabs Koda and substitutes out of the way, having Muscular crush a wood block beneath him. As now Deku stands there, his face looking towards Muscular, he tells him that he's going down. Quickly, he summons 4 shadow clones as they begin to swarm around Muscular poofing them instantly as he punches them into bits. Deku would then climb on top of Muscular, using his superior agility as well as his strength to stick onto Muscular as he punches into him, pulling out a kunai and slicing the villain. What are you doing here? Are you with the League of Villains? Muscular would laugh as he asks if he knows who this kid is as he points to a picture of Bakugo. Kachan? Deku would think, as he then gets pushed away from Muscular's attacks. Muscular's ability is able to seemingly grow muscles upon himself, Deku would think. He then decides he's going to have to go all out. He creates the Rasengan in his hand as he rushes forward at full speed, smashing the Rasengan directly into Muscular. As it causes a large spinning hole to appear in his muscles, Muscular pretends to scream in pain. Ugh! I got you there. Deku would be shocked as he gets pushed back, now having his right arm feel fractured from the attack. Damn it! He would think as Muscular is about to tower over him. Deku would quickly fall back as he uses his own technique. As Deku's sitting back, he just needs time. Time! Muscular would be distracted as water goes flying on top of him, with him being held back only by Deku's shadow clones. As the water sprays him, Koda would look at Muscular and tell him to leave him alone, as Deku would look back to Koda. That's the time I needed. Deku would close his eyes as he sits perfectly still and breathes in. As Deku opens his eyes, we would see that Deku would have achieved the style of Wood-style Sage Mode, the same as Hashirama Senju. He would then tell Muscular, "You're down now. There's no one in this world who can defeat me in this style." As he then punches Muscular, he goes flying into the air with Deku having increased his strength almost tenfold. What the hell? This kid just sent me flying, when only a moment ago that puny attack of his could do nothing to me. Koda would be sitting there crying, as he wonders if Deku's gonna be alright. His hero. Deku would turn back and tell Koda to run, and that he'll take care of this villain himself. He then quickly begins to form the style of hand seal. Wood style! Forest emergence jutsu! As he slams his hand down to the ground, the wood style force would emerge as it begins piercing up into the heavens, stabbing itself into Muscular as he's now high up above, as a large tree is formed in the forest. Deku would begin rushing up the side, using his chakra as he sticks to his feet to it, running up as high as he can until eventually he would find him. Muscular. It's time to finish this, Deku would say as he charges his nature energy that he's accumulated into his Rasengan. He creates a ginormous Rasengan as he smashes it into Muscular, flying down beneath as they go flying into the ground, with Muscular being sent down to the cliff as it shatters into pieces, as rocks slide covering his body as he falls to his death. Deku would stand on the valley with blood on his arm as Sage Mode deactivates, him feeling completely drained of his chakra. He would roar out in victory as the light would shine upon him, before falling to the ground. Koda would shake him awake as Deku says that everything's gonna be alright. Deku would tie a splint quickly as he decides he doesn't have enough chakra to heal himself fast enough. He picks up his now friend Koda and would decide to get back to the camp as soon as possible before anything else can occur. Little did he know that from afar, a Kurogiri is watching what happened the entire time, and is very curious about what quirk this boy has, as he begins to go back to report it to his master, All for One. As Deku slides down the mountain, Koda's on his back, covered with wood around his back so he doesn't fall off. As Deku's rushing down, the blood that's coming out of his arms are now beginning to heal. This style of Senju Jutsu that he'd learned. An ancient Kekigenkai that only the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju himself, had learned. Deku was a descendant of the Senjus himself, and he has now unlocked Wood Style, Sage Mode. Deku's thinking about all of this as it's whirling through his mind, moving at millions of miles per hour, as he thinks about what the Sage of Six Paths had told him about the Naruto world before it had gone to chaos and grown to what it would become now. Deku's rushing back to the main base camp, where he sees Aizawa standing there. Aizawa-sensei, it's me, Deku. Aizawa would look over as he sees Deku covered with all these black markings on his face, going all the way down his body. All of his wounds are healing as steam's coming out of them, as he's healing faster than anyone could perceive. It's as if he has some sort of healing or regeneration quirk even. Aizawa would ask what's going on, when Deku would drop Koda saying he has to go help out the others. He'd run off as he sees blue flames in the forest. Damn it! I'm gonna run out of this mode soon. I only have a few minutes left. Deku would create the hand seal as he wraps his fingers together, interlocking them. As he does so, wood style would explode out of him, as he creates several wood clones rushing in separate directions. As one of them flies towards Dabi, he creates a wood style Deep Forest emergence jutsu, covering his flames with his own wood style. Dabi sent flying backwards as he's hit by the wood clone at full force, a taijutsu battle beginning between Dabi and this wood clone of Deku. Deku would run off as he sees the giant monster, which would be Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow would immediately begin to loosen its hold on Tokoyami, as Deku begins to use its powers of wood style to hold in the beast. Deku picks up his hand and slams it into the ground. As he does so, several wooden poles come up all around what Dark Shadow had become. Tokoyami looks around and tells him to run. Dark Shadow begins to loosen its hold on Tokoyami. What? Dark Shadow begins to shrink, as Deku's holding his hands together, the wood poles all beginning to glow, as Deku's siphoning chakra into all of them. Now, the chakra is powered up, as Tokiyami is sent back to its normal form, with dark shadow sealed inside of him. Thanks, Midoriya. Midoriya would nod as he then would say that he's got to go help the rest, as he then runs off. He would see someone fighting, as he sees Ice, Todoroki. Todoroki and Bakugo are fighting this guy with strange teeth, with metal moving all around. This guy called Moonfish, apparently, from what he can tell from hearing Bakugo scream his name. Moonfish! Deku would scream as he rushes towards him. As he creates the chakra hand seals, he would eventually charge chakra into his hand, creating the Rasengan. Just as a metal beam is about to come flying towards Todoroki, he would slam the Rasengan into it, causing it to go spinning off course and smashing into a tree. Deku would throw several kunai towards Moonfish, as Moonfish tries to dodge out of the way, having several slices from them. Bakugo, Todoroki, I'll need some help. Todoroki, I need you to create an ice formation here and here, as Deku points, telling him to make a swirling motion. Todoroki would follow his instructions as he creates a pipe. Then Bakugo would get behind it. Are you ready, Bakugo? I need you to use full force. Don't have to tell me that, Deku. Deku would hop into the tube, as Bakugo then would hold both his hands together, causing an explosion. Deku sent flying out the front with a Rasengan in hand, almost like a bullet, as he goes flying forward towards Moonfish. Super-powered, high-speed Rasengan! Deku would scream as he slams the Sage-powered Rasengan into Moonfish, sending him flying through several trees as he's completely knocked out and his teeth have now fallen out. Great work, guys! Deku would give the thumbs up, as Bakugo and Todoroki would smile, with Bakugo laughing, saying he didn't even think that would work. Todoroki would then give Midoriya a thumbs up as well, saying he did a good job thinking of something so quickly. Bakugo would then ask what's going on with his face, as the black marks are beginning to disappear. Deku would look around as he sees that his Sage chakra's fading. I'm out of time, he would think. Suddenly, his arms and legs would begin to feel weak, as he feels all the strength that he had gained from the nature energy begin to leave him. Damn it. He'd fall to the ground, as he creates a wood clone with some of the last of his chakra, in order to create one to hold him. Guys, let my clone take care of us for now. Alright, me, take us back to base camp. Deku would get onto his clone's shoulders, which would take him, as well as Bakugo and Todoroki back to Mr. Aizawa. On their way back, however, suddenly, Mr. Compress arrives. I'll be taking that, thank you. As he grabs Bakugo before anyone can react, Deku would look up, one of his eyes being lazy from his chakra being so low, and his entire body beginning to be sore and from pain. Todoroki, save him! Deku would say as he reaches his hand out, throwing a kunai towards Bakugo. A seal tag would land on Bakugo's leg, as he barely escapes. Kachan! Deku would scream, as he reaches out towards Bakugo. Bakugo would reach his hand out as he screams, Don't come, Deku! Stay back! As Bakugo's eye fades into the darkness of Kodogiri's warp gate, Toga would also retreat, having taken blood from Ochako, as she had fought her and Froppy later in the forest further away. Deku would hold his hand out as he tries to grab Bakugo, just as the portal closes, seeing that all the Vanguard members, except for Muscular and Moonfish, had escaped. Damn it, Deku would think as he falls to the ground, his wood clone disappearing as his chakra is now waned. Deku, Todoroki, and the rest of Class 1A would all report back to Aizawa, with Deku slamming his fist into the ground, telling Aizawa that they failed. Bakugo had been taken. Bakugo had been the target of the Vanguard to be taken by the League of Villains. They got Kachan. This is what Deku would say, as Aizawa looks at him, patting on the head, saying it's alright. They'll figure some way to figure it out and save Bakugo from their clutches. The police would arrive, as now the training camp would come to an early end. Kodo would thank Deku, as Deku nods, telling him it was no problem. Kodo would see Deku walk away, as we had that same moment before where he thinks that that's his hero. As Deku walks away, he'd be thinking of his failure of trying to save Bakugo, as well as his new power that he's unlocked of wood style. No way. This is what Deku would be thinking, as he realizes that his heritage was actually that from the first Hokage, which means he must be related to someone from the Leaf Village. UA would have immense pressure put on it, as several of the students had gotten severely injured, not to mention what had happened to Class B, as well as Class 1A. Incredibly lucky, Yaoyorozu had actually gotten a tracker placed on one of the Nomus, which had returned back to their home base. Hopefully they'll be able to find Bakugo, as well as stop the League of Villains permanently at their home base there. However, many students were injured, including Yaoyorozu herself, who was barely in bed when the heroes had come to ask her about what had happened. Yaoyorozu would have given them the tracker just like she did in the original. This is when the remnants of Class 1A would come in, with Kirishima at the forefront. They have to save Bakugo. We need to know. We need that tracker. We need to find him. Yakuza would agree as long as she gets to come along with the original, with Ida asking them if they're all nuts, knowing that this is against the rules. Already having to deal with the League of Villains back then, how could they beat them now? We see Deku sitting there, his arms having already been healed from his abilities as a Senju. We would then see him thinking back, with memories of him and Kachan, as he looks up saying he's in, and that he's gonna go stop whoever had taken Kachan. Deku, Ida, Kirishima, Todoroki, and Yaoyorozu would head out, as the small team would decide against the rules that they would go and save Bakugo. Froppy would have that same event that she had in the original, asking them that they shouldn't go, and they'd ignore her anyway. They'd all get makeovers, with Deku being a bit miffed about this as he really liked his hero costume. And he was already stealthy enough anyway, due to being a shinobi. But no one else cared, and they told him that they needed to stay out of business so no one knows that UA students were on scene. They'd follow the tracker that Yakuza had made, as they would then head over to the area at Camino Ward. As they arrive, they would see the hideout where the Nomu were staying. We then see Bakugo on the area just as they all appear. What the? The heroes had gone here first. They'd already raided the hideout. We see suddenly, as Deku senses a malevolent chakra. Deku would begin to sweat, as he says, "We have to get out of here. Now." Suddenly a burst of air would come shooting towards them, as he says that I see you there. Deku would then look up as he sees All For One standing there. Damn it! This power, we see a flashback, as not of his own memories, but inside of him, all of the chakra in the entire world has a flashback as we see one instant. An image of fear captured in the hearts of all who faced him. We see the same dark presence of Madara Uchiha inside of All For One. The same dark presence, the same malevolent intent. This guy. There's no way he can win, Deku would think, as he feels fear overtaking him. He'd push everyone out of the way, a millisecond before the next attack came, as you see All Might coming into the fight. He can't take him alone. He would grit his teeth and crunch his fists, as he then looks deep inside of himself. Can I do this? Deku would think, as he then realizes that, in order to save Bakugo, he'll do whatever it takes. Todoroki, I need you, Ida, as well as everyone else here to grab Bakugo and run. I'll help All Might fight, All For One, as well as the rest of the League of Villains. I can use my substitution jutsu to escape if I have to, but he doesn't have that luxury. If there's no one else who can help him fight, then it's my duty. It's my duty as the last shinobi. Naruto would say this as he runs off into battle. Midoriya, wait! Ida would say as he holds his hand out. Deku would continue running, however, as he then enters it. Wood-style Sage Mode. As Midoriya enters this power, his body fluctuates with chakra as it rises sky high. All For One would take notice as he turns to the right, seeing a strange green energy surrounding Midoriya. As he looks up, All For One would say, so this must have been the person who inherited One For All. This isn't the case, actually. He can sense the amount of intense energy coming out of Deku, but he does not have One For All. As I've already stated before, it was actually given to Mirio. All For One would be shocked, as All Might would say that he's wrong, as he smiles, saying he doesn't know who the actual successor is for One For All. All Might would laugh as All For One's surprised, saying there's no way that any other quirk could have this much power, and simply surging off of it. Deku would grit his teeth as he says, I don't have a quirk. I have the power of thousands of years ago, the powers of the ancient shinobi. As he flies forward, he creates wood style, as he creates the Deep Force Emergence Jutsu, slamming into All For One. All Might would tell young Midoriya to get back, as he then tells All Might that he won't let him fight alone. Bakugo would look to the right as he sees, Midoriya? What is he? Suddenly, Bakugo is grabbed by Ida, as well as Todoroki as they go flying away. Bakugo sees this in the last image of his eye, as he sees Deku and All For One crossing fists. Deku holding his own against the leader of the League of Villains? What? As Deku crunches, his sage strength is actually equal to All For One's quirk powers. Wow, this child's got some strength, All For One would say, as he punches Deku back, sending him flying towards a building. Substitution jutsu. Suddenly a wood block would appear as it shatters into the building. What is this quirk? All For One would grab Deku, as All Might would tell him to get back. As he tries to take his quirk, suddenly All For One would see an image of an old man with strange purple eyes as he looks into his own. All For One would be shocked as he's suddenly forced out of Deku's body, not allowed to take his quirk from some higher being. What is this? The state of 6 passes blocked the ability for all of them to take his chakra. As Deku would then see the air bullet coming towards him, he would remember how the old shinobi of the past would deal with this. As he holds his hands together, he creates Earth-style rock mud wall. As he slams his hand into the ground, a wall of mud would come up, blocking the air as him and All Might are protected. All Might, we can do this together. With your strength and my techniques, we can do it. Deku would then tell All Might that he has something he needs to give him before All For One can break through his wall. Suddenly he creates it, the Rasengan. All Might, when you run out of power, use this. If you slam into him at your full strength, it will definitely be able to defeat him. I know it. As Deku puts his chakra into the Rasengan, believing in All Might and handing it to him, All Might would nod, saying he's glad that he's there with him. As he gives the Rasengan to All Might would gladly take into his hand, as the blue aura would completely combine with One For All's power, the flames of the Ember. As All Might would come shooting forward, telling Midoriya to stay back and provide support, Midoriya would give him a nod as he says that he's got his back. All Might would smile, showing that he truly is a symbol of peace, as he then connects another blow with All For One. Just as All For One is seemingly about to win, a fireball comes from behind All Might, slamming into All For One, sending him off his feet. All Might, do it now! Deku would scream, as All Might then holds out the power in his hand. United States of Smash! As All Might screams smash, Deku would shout, Rasengan! As the Rasengan interconnects with the smash, creating a large wave of chakra mixed with the pure strength of All Might slamming into All For One. Damn it! Damn it! He can't block this. This power, it's too overwhelming. All For One's completely swept up in this tornado of strength as wind overtakes the entire Kamino ward. All the helicopters in the area begin to spin as the power completely takes out the entire city's electricity. All For One is fallen. As the League of Villains escapes, he forcefully teleports everyone away. As he does so, Shigaraki would lock with Deku in their eyes, as he knows who the biggest threat of the hero's side will be. This kid. His quirk is so versatile. He'll be a thorn in my side for many years. I can feel it. Shigaraki would begin to scratch his neck as he tells him, as he points at him, that he'll get him. Midoriya, was it? As he disappears into the teleportation quirk that All For One had used, All For One would be now completely knocked out, as All Might holds his fist into the air, taking victory. As All Might holds up Midoriya's hand with him, Midoriya would look up into All Might's eyes as he gives him a smile, telling him that they actually won. They took down All For One and beat the League of Villains. Heroes everywhere, along with hero fans, would be screaming in awe as they just saw a student from UA and All Might actually fight together. Deku would be reprimanded, of course, after the fight, as All For One had been taken in, but no one could deny that All Might, without Deku's help, might not have been able to beat All For One. With the assistance of the power that young Midoriya had given, as just support for All Might, his popularity had already risen, as pro heroes all around the globe were looking towards this new young youth, who had actually been able to support the #1 hero. All Might would give props to Midoriya, saying that his technique and his quirk are almost perfect, as that whatever that new mode was that he entered, what did you call it? Wood style? He was able to summon trees. It was incredible. Deku would blush as he thanks his favorite hero for actually telling him that, as he hopes that Edgeshot Senpai is proud of him. Deku would not have almost any injuries from that battle, as he had gone blow to blow with one of the strongest villains of all time. However, Bakugo would not be feeling the same mutually. As they get back to 1A and get to the dorm rooms after, Deku and his mom would have a talk. Mama Midoriya would tell Deku that she doesn't know how she feels about letting him go off on his own to go and live alone. Deku would comfort his mother, telling her what he had said in the original, with All Might coming and visiting himself, saying if Midoriya hadn't intervened in his fight, he may not be standing there breathing or even be allowed to be a teacher anymore at UA. Mama Midoriya, Inko, would be pretty proud of her son, and she would eventually allow him to go to the dorms. As Deku makes it to the dorms, a lot of Class 1A would be sitting there silent, as they don't know what to think anymore. Kirishima would be the first one to speak. Man, that was so manly. It was awesome. I saw what you did of All Might and how you backed him up. That was some manly moves out there, as he gives him a fist bump. Deku would thank him, saying he tried his best to protect All Might as well as everyone else, and he asks if Bakugo and everyone got out okay. Bakugo would be sitting there speechless as he looks at the ground thinking about it, thinking about how Deku had outshone him again. Damn it. Damn Deku. Bakugo would be thinking this, as we then see the rest of Class 1A beginning to warm up to Deku again, realizing he's not some almighty god that's above them. As Deku would laugh, saying that he was just trying his best to help out All Might since he is one of their teachers, Aizawa would wrap him around with his scarf as he tells him that was reckless of him. If he was gonna go, he should have at least told someone else, one of the teachers, and they could have helped back him up. Deku laughed as he said sorry to Aizawa sensei, who would smile, thankful that his student's alright. Deku would then relax, as we see Bakugo saying that he has something on his mind. Later that night, Bakugo would go to Deku, as he tells him that he wants him to meet him in the training grounds in 30 minutes. Bakugo would walk out the front door as he tells Deku that he wants to test something. He wants to figure out something out. Deku would nod as he sees Bakugo walking away into the darkness. Bakugo is walking away into the darkness. Deku's eyes are flicking back and forth between himself and Bakugo, looking from inside the door as Bakugo begins to walk towards the training field, his black shirt flowing in the wind as Bakugo's hair creases across his forehead as he would turn around, his eye locking with Deku's for the final time before he completely walks away. Deku would pull on his shirt as well as he puts his armbands on as he walks out, with him not going anywhere without having some sort of weights on now, which increases speed. Deku would walk out of the building as he strolls along the stone pathway from the Class 1A building for the dormitories and walks to the training field where he and Bakugo decided to meet up. As he stands there waiting for what Bakugo is about to say, Bakugo would then look up as he tells Deku that he's tired of being underneath him. "What do you mean, Kachan?" Deku would ask, with Bakugo slamming his fist into the metal pole, causing it to burn up from his explosive palms as the metal pole falls to the ground, the metal melting beneath the heat. "I'm done with this. I was taken by the League of Villains and I couldn't stop them. I could do nothing. You took out most of them in just under with your own power. You didn't even need to do anything else. You carried basically the entire team. All of Class 1 was relying on you. I should be the one everyone relies on," Baku would say, as he begins to feel himself eating away himself from his guilt towards his weakness. Bakugo would then go further into detail as he says, "Fight me." Deku would then be shocked as Bakugo rushes at him, using his explosives to give him a burst towards Deku. Deku would easily dodge underneath this, as what he hits, Bakugo punches, would easily turn to smoke, as Deku is now standing on top of the building with his now wood clone having been completely destroyed. "Bakugo, we don't have to do this," he would say, as Deku's getting ready to use wood style. "Oh yeah, we do." As Kachan would then fly up towards Deku, Deku would then slam his hand to the ground. "Wood style!" As he creates a wooden beam slamming into Bakugo's chest, sending Bakugo flying into the concrete building, smashing through as bits of concrete fall into Bakugo's eyes. Deku would jump from the building as he rushes towards Bakugo, jumping across each of the buildings until he gets to the empty gap which Bakugo's body had made through the wall. "Kachan," he would say, as he pulls his fist back, ready to punch into the ground, charging Chakra into his fist. As he just is about to slam it into the ground, Bakugo would leap backwards as he throws an explosion at Deku, sending him flying out of the building and hurling to the ground below, where he lays there for a second. As Bakugo comes down, just about to slam into him, this is when Deku would smile as he says, "Got you." As Bakugo lands on top of a wood clone, shattering the wood to pieces. Deku would now be behind him as he uses the hidden jutsu that he'd learned. Hidden jutsu of the Leaf Village. 1,000 years of death! Deku would shove both of his fingers into, well, you know what that means. As Bakugo feels an immense pain, yelping as he jumps into the air, asking what that was. Deku would laugh as Bakugo tells him to stop playing around with him, as he then goes full strength against Deku, almost as if he was trying to kill him. Deku would tell Kachan that they don't have to do this, as he then creates a Rasengan, smashing into Bakugo, sending him hurling himself into that same lamp that he had destroyed earlier. "You're right. I have to do this," is what Bakugo would say, as he runs at Deku again, over and over again. By now, UA would already know about what's going on from all the destruction, causing them to wonder if villains had invaded the UA area, with All Might volunteering to go down and see what's going on. With All Might now going down to check on how they're doing, we would see Bakugo and Deku's fight beginning to advance, as Deku creates 3 shadow clones which all run towards Bakugo, as they now to run towards him, throwing kunai at him. Bakugo would explode the kunai out of the air, using a Howitzer spin impact, as he spins towards Deku at maximum impact. This is when Deku uses his own attacks. He pulls his fist back, creating a massive Rasengan, slamming it into Bakugo. That's not all I can do, Deku would think, as Deku can use all of the chakra natures that he's been taught by the Sage of Six Paths. Deku would pull his hand down, as he then channels lightning chakra into his fist. As he creates the hand seals in order to do so, he would create it. Chidori! As he pulls his hand back, he begins to run at full speed, causing him to almost blitz past, making after images, as he's about to jab the Chidori at Bakugo. Bakugo, you better catch us if you don't want to die, Deku would think. As Bakugo holds both hands, realizing the power behind this strike, Bakugo would catch Deku's Chidori, as he uses a large explosion to lower Deku's speed and push him back as the Chidori disintegrates, getting minor electrical burns on Kacchan. Bakugo would not be breathing heavily while Deku's standing there. Deku asks him if he really wants him to go all out against him, with Bakugo nodding. Deku would sigh as he tells him that he hasn't shown this power to anyone yet, but if he insists. He closes his eyes for a second as Deku's hair begins to rise up. Deku would then open his eyes as wood-style sage-wind would cross across his entire body with black markings. This is the style of my ancestor, Hashirama Senju, and I am Deku, or Izuku of the Senju clan. He would then rush forward as he creates the wood-style clone jutsu, deep forest emergence jutsu, and wood-style wooden golem. As he creates the massive golem towering over Bakugo, Bakugo can see clearly how outmatched he is as he's pinned against the tree of the ginormous forest that's now breached into the city. This is when All Might would arrive, as he sees the two of them about to go with their final battle, letting them finish their fight. Then I'm going to go all out too, Bakugo would think, as he charges all the sweat he can into one final explosion. As he rushes forward, Bakugo would then jump with full speed and power as he slams into Deku's wood golem with a massive explosion. Nuclear impact! As Bakugo randomly comes up with this cool sounding name, he would use all the sweat he can in his body to create a massive explosion. By channeling this explosion into a small area, he would pierce directly through the golem before it would implode on itself, creating a massive explosion, which would then pierce through the golem and the rest of the city. However, as he turns around, he would hear something. First gate, open! As he would then turn around, seeing Deku with lightning sparkling all over him, as he would then say, "This is the power of Chakra." Deku would slam his fist into Bakugo, showing him who's truly the alpha of between two of them, as he smashes Bakugo into the ground. Bakugo would cough up blood as he feels the power of this fist much stronger than anything he'd ever felt from Deku before. Deku would deactivate the first gate as he's breathing hard, feeling his body taking the limits of the gates. I didn't know if I could do it, he would think, as he recalls the memories of what Guy Sensei and Rock Lee were able to do by channeling the gates. Bakugo would be laying on the ground, speechless, as we see All Might approaching. All Might would then help sort through Bakugo's emotional problems, along with Deku there to help him out. Bakugo would be thinking that Deku was the one who inherited All Might's power. However, as we already know, I said that Mirio would be the one who had inherited One For All from All Might, with Deku being aware of One For All having been transferred to Mirio, and being like an accomplice of sorts. Deku would nod, telling Bakugo that he was just assisting All Might with Mirio's training as well, as he had his own training he had to work on during those months beforehand. Bakugo would grow to understand what had caused Deku to grow so much in such a short time as well, and see that Deku's new power of wood style of his heritage was something that Deku could only do. He'd be shocked, as he'd never seen Deku in such a way before, as he'd always thought of them as pure equals, with him maybe being a bit over Deku in power-wise. Deku would say that to Bakugo that he didn't want to fight him to begin with, as he holds his hand out, trying to give Bakugo a hand to pull him up. Bakugo would take his hand as he remembers the scene that we get from the original, where Bakugo fell into the river and Deku's there to help him. Deku would say he doesn't see Bakugo as weak, but he just tells him that he's a friend. Bakugo would be pulled up by Deku, as him, Bakugo, and All Might would all walk away. Deku would get back to the dormitories, with Aizawa being a very, very unhappy person, as he heard the loud explosions and battle going on, waking him and the rest of Class 1A up from their sleep. Both Deku and Bakugo would be placed under house arrest, just like they were in the original, with classes continuing as normal, with the two of them being locked in. After their house arrest had been over, they would then learn about the Hero Provisional License exam, and both of them would be excited about it, as Deku's ready to test his power to show it off to his new opponents, I guess you could say. As Deku and Bakugo would both be getting ready for their exam, they would be ready to battle them. They get on the bus as they approach to the place where the venue for the hero licensing exam would take place. Aizawa would tell them all to do their best, with Bakugo nodding, along with Deku and everyone else in Class 1A saying they will. As they get out, we can see the Deku lookalike coming and greeting them as well, as Mrs. Joke saying hi to Aizawa. As everyone gets inside, they then begin to be explained their first task. They'd be given the orange balls, of which they would have to go around the city and take as many points from other teams as they could as possible. Of course, this is when UA would find out that they'd be targeted the entire time. However, Deku would be able to protect everyone in Class 1A this time around. As suddenly the entire thing begins to start, as the bell begins to ring, and Miss Joke says, of course, UA's always targeted the first year, as everyone has seen their abilities in the sports festival. Deku would say, I don't think so, as he uses his wood style, Deep Forest Emergence. As he creates a massive forest around Class 1A, protecting them with a massive tree curling around them, he would tell everyone to get into battle formation as they're impressed with Deku's strength and power. All of their long-range fighters would get on top of the tree as they begin blasting their orange balls to get the points that they need to pass. Deku said that he'd send his clones out as he creates several wood and shadow clones to go out and gather points for himself. Wow, they'd be thinking as they see this kid using multiple powers and abilities, almost like some sort of shinobi, as he jumps using different fighting styles and techniques. Bakugo and Todoroki wouldn't sit around, though, as they would head out on their own along with their respective squads, with Todoroki going alone and Bakugo taking Kirishima and, Denki. As they get out of there, we would then see Uraraka, Ida, and the rest of the gang would stay around with Deku, as Deku is basically their leader now. Deku would tell all of them to get ready for this, as he would then be charging his ability up. As Deku sits in the middle with 4 clones around him holding their hands towards him, they begin to charge nature energy into him, as he finally gathers enough to access Wood-style Sage Mode. As he opens his eyes, Wood-style Sage Mode would cover them, as he now has black markings across his entire body. Everyone get ready for this. As he slams his fist into the ground, he would use his ability that he'd been trying to do for some time now. Summoning Jutsu! As he creates the summoning jutsu, Deku would summon himself, the Great Usagi, or the Great Rabbit. This is not a ReZero reference, by the way, just so you know. Anyway, a massive rat would be summoned, asking what this human wants, having not had contact with humans in centuries. Deku would be surprised by his summoning. A big bunny, huh? This massive rabbit would say, who are you calling a bunny? As it then would jump, causing the earth to shake underneath them. I get it, he would say, as he says that he wants to make a summoning contract with the bunny. He would agree to the summoning contract, as the Great Rabbit hadn't had any humans approach it in centuries, after Chakra had died out, and many of the secret places, such as what we know as the Great Mountain, which Naruto had trained out with the Toad Sages, had also been lost to time as well. This is Deku's summoning for the rabbit. He would have all of Class 1A get on, as they would then jump out of the giant wood tree that had been surrounding them. As they land, a massive earthquake would cause everyone to shake, as even the guy from Miss Joke's class, who uses earthquakes, would be shocked by this. Deku would then tell everyone to attack, as he creates a massive Rasen Shuriken in his hand and throws it towards the students down below, creating a massive explosion and hurling them all sideways. Not just yet, he would think. As he then has all of his clones that he'd sent out use their ability of wood style. As he has wood style on use, he creates a giant net, which he has all of his wood clones fall down from the ceiling and capture as many as he can, with everyone in Class 1A getting as many points as possible thanks to Deku's help. With Baku and Todoroki's group doing about the same as they would in the original, Deku would have secured all the points he needed, as he and Class 1A would head out having completed the exam. He desummons the Great Rabbit, not knowing what his summoning is, as he looks down at his hand, which now has the symbol on it for his summoning. Everyone would ask what that was all about, with Deku explaining it's one of his facets of his chakra ability, with him being able to summon an animal to his aid. Deku would then think about what he could do with this ability, as he hadn't considered anything about this before. A rabbit, huh? He would think about Rabbit's abilities and burrowing and such for the next couple minutes as he mumbles about it to himself. Anyhow, Deku would then meet up with Baku and Todoroki as they finally arrived back at their points, asking how everything went. Everyone would say it went great, as now the second examination began to start. Due to Deku being in the middle of the crowd, it was hard for Kami, or should I say Toga, to get in close contact with him. So she tried her best this time around. As Shiketsu High, as the rivals of UA, have decided that they have claimed Deku as their rival, with the 3 who are there thinking, with one of them being out due to Bakugo, thinking that he'll be the biggest threat. Deku would then be announced as he opens his ears, listening to what's going on, hearing the second examination would be a save and rescue mission, with all of them having to go out to find, after the destruction they caused in the city, if there were any civilians out there that had been hurt, which were the people that were actors that had been chosen to help in this actual licensing exam. Deku would know what he could do. As soon as the doors opened for all of them to get out, Deku would create multiple wood clones, draining a majority of his chakra, which he has multitudes of. As he creates many, many tens and almost 100 wood clones, they would spread out as he orders them what to do, with the wood clones spreading out, asking if people are alright, and picking them up on their backs and taking them to safety. Everyone would be shocked as Deku commands his own army. Everyone is surprised, seeing Deku basically being a one-man army, as Deku would save a majority, around 60% of the people who had actually been out in the city. Many of them would give him good ratings, as Deku was calm, collected, and analytical, even though he was only using clones. And his job was so fast that even if there was a situation like this in the real world, he could have easily saved everyone in a matter of minutes, even gotten the medical help. Many of the other students who had medical capabilities were already working on treating the now non-injured civilians. The last 40% would be left to the rest of the students who wanted to pass, as Deku had basically stolen a majority of everyone who had been in danger. The rest of class 1A would be struggling as they attempt to get it, but eventually they would all get it, with more people being knocked out this time around. Bakugo would be a little miffed that Deku actually did this, but Deku said that he wanted to secure it for them and that they would actually pass. He didn't know that it was only a 1-point system for him instead of their class, though. Anyway, this is when the beef between Todoroki and the windbag from Shiketsu would start, and we would see Kami walk over to Deku and to have a conversation. As Kami would touch Deku, Uraraka would actually see this, as she sees her face get red, as Kami has her hand on Deku's thigh. As she looks into Deku's eyes, she'd lick her lips. As she begins to crawl on Deku, Deku would begin to feel uncomfortable. What are you doing? He would think, as Kami would say she just wanted to say hi. With Kami being dragged away by the windbag from Shiketsu, this is all she would get for today, she would think, as she sighs, with Toga actually grabbing a little of Uraraka's blood while she was distracted, since she still had to get her points from the field. Anyway, Kami would escape who we know being Toga would escape, and everything would go on as normal, as Deku would pass with flying colors. The third and final task would be when Gang Orca comes out to battle. Everyone was looking to Deku to do something, but as I look to him, they can see he's breathing heavily from carrying this team. As Bakugo would look at Deku and asking if he's going to be useless, Deku would look up Sang, saying he needs a minute or two, telling him that he drained a majority of his chakra, creating so many wood clones at once. However, he hasn't desummoned them yet, so he'll still use them to fight. As everyone goes out to actually have a competition now instead of having Deku carry them, hundreds of wood clones from Deku would then rush towards Gang Orca, who would use his abilities to swipe through them, destroying them and turning them back into wood with majority of ease. As Gang Orca and his now possum of his subordinates would rush against the injured civilians, Deku would use his ability of his last around 67 clones to defend himself as well as the rest of the students who were assisting with caring for civilians. Todoroki, as well as the Shiketsu windbag, would now be arguing over who would be able to take out Gang Orca, as he would tell them, those two, that girls are both pretty, as he begins to fight them using his abilities of his Quirk, using his hypersonic hearing and screeching at them. Neither one would begin to back down. However, this is when we hear someone yelling, as Deku runs in asking him what the hell they're doing, as Deku rushes in with a large, massive Rasengan. Rasengan! As he smashes this attack into Gang Orca, sending him flying out of range into the mountain. He tells the two of them to get their act together, as he tells them to look what's going around them. The two would realize that they hadn't been acting like heroes at all, as the two would then snap back to reality and agree to work together, helping Deku as they begin to work on defeating Gang Orca. Gang Orca would recover from this attack, saying that had a ton of power behind it, as Deku tells him he needs a bit of time to charge his next attack. The two of them would then begin to attack Gang Orca together, while Deku begins to make his hand seals. Ishitori me no. He would begin to chant, as suddenly he would say, "I'm all ready." "Do it," Todoroki would say. "Water Dragon Jutsu." As he creates a massive dragon made of water, Deku would use the remaining ounces of his chakra to blast this water dragon towards Gang Orca. Gang Orca would be actually invigorated by the attack. As the water hits his skin and he begins to absorb it. Damn it, Deku would think, as he falls to the ground, completely unconscious. Ida and Baku would rush in to grab Deku and run out of there, as now it's up to Todoroki as well as Shiketsu Hai to help take him down, as Gang Orca is surrounded in all corners. You won't beat me, he'd say, as Todoroki would grit his teeth. I have to win. I have to win for UA, for Class 1A. Deku blasts Gang Orca with a Water Dragon Jutsu. Water Dragon Jutsu! As Deku uses all of his chakra in this final attack, hoping to take Gang Orca out in a strong blast of water. Unfortunately for Deku, who had been studying heroes for such a long time, had actually missed the fact that Gang Orca gets powered up by taking in water, and his skin actually, by absorbing water, made him more powerful, as Gang Orca then buffs up, feeling the Water Dragon's chakra basically flow through him and give him a small boost. As Deku's shocked as he falls back on his feet, now laying on the ground completely motionless. Uraraka as well as Todoroki and Shiketsu Hai's students would run over to try and defend Deku as Gang Orca was about to attack. Todoroki would send out a blast of heat towards Gang Orca just to use as a sound wave attack. Deku would hold up his hand trying to block the force of the attack as the heat strikes into Gang Orca as well as the sound wave that Gang Orca had used is about to hit the group. Inasa and Todoroki would both use their respective quirks, as they use wind and fire to surround Gang Orca, slowly taking the oxygen out of inside this flaming tornado. The fire sent by Todoroki is then controlled using the winds to make down pressure to keep the flames in a spinning rotation, basically following the same principles of the Rasengan as Deku would be thinking. As Deku's watching, Gang Orca is beginning to lose his hydration, as he's beginning to pass out from the lack of oxygen. Gang Orca would eventually be timed out as the timer for having to protect everyone would bring, and both students would stop as Gang Orca would finally withhold the attack and burst out of the flame tornado, saying that they did a really good job. Deku would be exhausted, breathing in heavily and out, as he tells everyone he's fine, as Todoroki would help him up and carry him back to the rest of the UA class, as they see Deku there, now completely exhausted. Bakugo would make fun of Deku, as Deku would then ask him if he even got his provisional license. Bakugo would shrug, as he then says that it's none of his business by telling him he's an idiot, as he walks away. Deku would get his provisional license, as they take the picture of him with him looking completely wiped out, as he sends a picture to All Might. All Might would tell him that he did a really good job, and Deku would thank him, saying that he tried to do his best and be like him, as All Might would actually blush from this on the other side of the phone. Most of Class 1A would have passed the exam, with Todoroki as well as Bakugo being the only two who have failed due to their personality flaws and losing points, while Deku had aced it with flying colors pretty much. Classes would resume to normal pretty much, with Shiketsu and Yue having sort of made up through Todoroki and Inuyasu's smoothing over the relationship between the two. Anyhow, as now the provisional license exam is finally over, everyone would head back to classes. A few days after their provisional license exam test, Deku as well as the majority of the class who had gained their license would be challenged by Mirio and the Big Three, as they meant to go meet them and explain to them about the work studies that they'd be doing coming up soon, and how it was special for first years to get this opportunity, with all the new villains running around and causing havoc across Japan, as well as the world now. Deku would be excited as he sees the Big Three, thinking these are the strongest people in UA. Mirio would see Deku, and he would immediately think that he wanted to challenge him, as this is when he would challenge the class to say that they'd all have to fight him at once and see if they can win. Deku would immediately think this guy's way too overconfident, as they would head to the gymnasium as he begins to tell them to get ready. Everyone would begin to square up as they get ready for the fight. Suddenly Mirio would disappear as he goes underground. Is he teleporting? Is that the flying Raijin jutsu? He would think, as suddenly Mirio would pop up directly behind one of his classmates, specifically Kirishima, as he then throws a full power punch, screaming, "Power!" as he does so, knocking Kirishima out of the area. I'm gonna have to find some way to counteract this guy, he would think. He's too fast for me to deal with on the ground. So, If I can get somewhere up, even if he can teleport to me, I have the advantage in the air, Deku would think. He would jump as high as he can using chakra and pushing it into his legs, shooting up to the ceiling, as he then turns around, clapping his feet against the top of the ceiling and attaching himself to it using chakra, as he uses chakra to walk on top of the ceiling, looking down. Deku would warn them, saying he thinks it's some kind of teleportation, as Mirio would then say that's not it, as he pops out of the ground again and then punches Mina, sending her flying back. Damn it, he would think. Deku would then quickly create a fire bullet jutsu as he blasts it towards Mirio. One of the bullets would make it barely in time, as Mirio then teleports away again. And Deku would have saw it. Wait a minute, Deku would think, as he sees the flame in his head hit into Mirio and phase right through him. Could that be, he would think, as he realizes that this must be an advanced version of that jutsu. Particle style, he would think. Mirio is the person who is part of the family that would have inherited the genes to have particle style from the Stone Village. This guy, if he can use particle style, then there's a way I can beat him, he would think. As Mirio uses his own quirk, which is basically an evolved version of particle style that lets him phase through things and alter his body and the actual particles within his body, Deku would come up with a way to counteract this. Deku would jump off the ceiling as he starts going towards the ground, telling everyone to jump into the air right now. Immediately, as he knows that Mirio isn't teleporting, that he's using particle style to phase through the ground and then pop back up, Mirio would jump out of the ground, prepared to take the student he had predicted, as he now takes a breath of air. As he's about to throw the punch, however, instead of the student he had originally picked, he would see Deku flying down towards him. I'll get you this time, he would think. Little does he know that I also have my own type of power. He would then use it, as Deku's face would begin covered with black lines as he opens his eyes, and now he has Sage Mode activated. Wood Style! As Deku uses Wood Style, he would create ceiling totems, as he uses the ceiling jutsu all around Mirio before he can pop underground again. By disabling the chakra that's within Mirio in Particle Style, and actually restraining it using ceiling jutsu, Deku can stop Mirio's basically instant teleportation by using his quirk to phase through things. Mirio would have to get outside of the totems in order to actually be able to use his quirk again. As he realizes what's going on, he's trying to run out. However, as he pushes his foot off the ground, Deku would land just in front of him, as he has his fist held back. Rasengan! As he pushes his hand forward with a full thrust directly into Mirio's chest, the power of the Rasengan explodes as a spinning circulates inside of now Mirio's abdomen. Mirio would fall back as he falls to the ground, taking the first hit he's ever had that's that hard, with Deku having figured out his quirk so fast in such little time, and being able to even counter it. This guy is amazing, Mirio would think, as he's smiling, thinking this guy is crazy strong. Deku would deactivate the one totem, saying he got a hit on Mirio, with Mirio having said before, cockily, that if even one of them could have landed a single hit on him, then he would admit defeat. Mirio would sigh as he's annoyed, saying he wanted to fight Deku more, as he asked Midoriya what his name is. Deku would introduce himself as Izuku Midoriya, and he would reach out his hand telling Mirio it's actually kind of nice to see him, with Mirio being puzzled by this, as Deku had only met Aizawa, being the only last descendant of the Uchihas, so he was hoping that there were some other people whom he might be able to relate to who might have chakra-related abilities that he could identify. Mirio would be confused by this comment, but he'd brush it off, as everyone's now more at ease with Mirio putting his clothes back on to the relief of everyone in class. As Mirio would tell Deku he's crazy strong, and that he wants to introduce him to someone, Deku would be interested, asking what he means. He would remind him of the work studies that'd be coming up soon, and he tells him that he would like him to meet his sensei and teacher, otherwise known as Night Eye, as everyone is aware of. Deku would be very interested in this proposal, saying he knows all about Night Eye as he smiles, telling him about the facts that Night Eye used to be an actual sidekick of All Might. Mirio moved the conversation away as he and Deku walk off, pretending to talk more about All Might and Night Eye with losing everyone's suspicions. Deku would then suddenly talk more serious as he asks Mirio how he's been coming along with One For All. If you guys remember, Deku actually had trained with Mirio before and has already met him, back when they had actually started this all in part 1, with All Might having given the power to Mirio and training with Deku back 10 months ago. So the two are actually quite good acquaintances already. Mirio would have already been updating Deku on the situation that's been going on with Overhaul, as All Might and Night had been planning on bringing Deku into the fold sometime soon anyway, as his skills as a shinobi and stealth are on par, if not greater, than some of the other stealth-like heroes. So Deku would be a perfect operative to go in and investigate what's going on. Mirio would tell him that he's been working on mastering One For All, and that it's a lot different than his actual normal quirk, as Deku would notice that he actually used a bit of One For All when he was fighting the students as his fellow classmates today, Mirio would nod, saying that trying to combine the two of his quirks together has been a bit tough, as if he activates both, then when he phases through, his control isn't as good. As if you gotta remember, Mirio's quirk he had to train a lot harder than most people in order to master to the perfect degree that he had to before. So getting used to using One For All, which boosts the quirk's power as well, must be extremely difficult for Mirio especially, particularly because of how much control he had over his quirk. So Deku would still be working with Mirio on helping him control One For All, and the two would end their conversation there saying that Deku would meet up with him at Night Eye's office. With Deku then talking to All Might, saying that he'd be meeting up with Night Eye and Mirio soon. All Might would cringe a little, as he remembers his last conversation when he had told Night Eye about Deku. Night Eye had seemed a bit awkward of him, as if you all remember that argument they had a few years ago of All Might's death. With that happening, and their conversation still being awkward as the two hadn't completely forgiven each other, Deku would still be sent to go work with Night Eye and tested to see if Night Eye would accept him. Work studies would come and Deku would be sent off as he goes to this work study at Night Eye's, where he sees all the All Might posters, complimenting Night Eye on his taste and saying he hasn't even seen that one before, as he points to one of the anniversary flags that he himself didn't even possess. Mirio told Deku about the condition that he should try to make Night Eye laugh. Deku would look at him with a serious face and ask him if he really thinks that he can make anyone laugh. Mirio would think about that for a second and then laugh himself, saying that's unlikely, and then tell him about the other option, which Deku would go with, saying that should be much easier for him. Even if someone can predict his actions, he would think, there's no way that he can know everything that I am able to do, and even if he can know what I'm going to do, there's no way he can fight against it. Deku would walk into the office as he and Night Eye lock eye contact, with Night Eye being less abrasive against Deku this time still, because he's not declaring himself All Might's apprentice, and him actually being pretty powerful without All Might's power at all. So he's not thinking of him as the rival to Mirio, as in like One For All's rival, the one who had taken One For All from Mirio, since Mirio has One For All in this timeline, and instead just thinking of him a potential pupil, so he wouldn't be as harsh on him and make fun of All Might or anything. Deku would ask Night Eye about this test that he has to take, with Night Eye showing him the paperweight and throwing up in the air, telling him if he can grab this from him or make him laugh, then he'll accept him as under his work study. Deku would narrow his eyes as he tells him that he's going to take that paperweight no matter what, as Night Eye and Deku would begin. Before anything starts, though, Deku would then say he'd like Night Eye to touch him. Burner. He would tell Night Eye to touch him so that way he can use his quirk on him, with Night Eye being flabbergasted as he asks what does he even mean, as Deku would then tell him that in order for his quirk to work he has to have physical contact with the target. Am I wrong? You would really give yourself that much of a disadvantage. You're pretty confident in yourself, huh? He would walk over as he gently if Deku holding his arm out, as he then gently touches Deku's arm, foreseeing into the future, saying he's definitely going to beat this kid. As he sees something in the future, his eyes would widen, thinking there's no way he'd do something so crazy, as he would then tell him he can do anything to damage this room. Deku would smile, as he says, alright. As suddenly, Deku would then create several hundred shadow clones surrounding the walls of the room, and crewing everywhere, blocking the door and every wall path. As he creates so many shadow clones, he would then enter Sage Mode himself, telling Night Eye if he doesn't want to die, then he should put the paperweight down. Mirio would be shocked with his mouth open, as all the clones begin to walk in slowly towards Night Eye, with Night Eye actually being surrounded. Night Eye would begin to attack the clones, and just as the smoke begins to fill the room, Night Eye, with Deku having now testing his future vision, would dodge to the right. Deku would say that this attack can't be dodged, as he then uses Wood Style, Deep Emergence Jutsu. This is when Night Eye gets slammed into by a literal force exploding out of his office, as Night Eye is now on top of a tree taking the hit by Deku. With such a wide spray of attack, Night Eye isn't fast enough to dodge the Wood Style, as even if he could see it beforehand, there's no way you can dodge a force moving at you that fast, as Deku then would deactivate Wood Style, absorbing it as the building now is falling down. He'd create another shadow clone which would lift him up and throw him at Night Eye, telling him that he's going to take that paperweight. As Deku would then create two Rasengans in both his hands and slam them together just before he hits Night Eye, with Night Eye moving out of the way, as the repercussion of the blast would knock Night Eye off course. As Night Eye is falling to the ground with Mirio watching in awe at this fight, Deku would then say it's almost over, as he then creates now 10 shadow clones, with each of them using a bullet jutsu, as all of them use different bullet jutsus blasted towards Night Eye. Night Eye tries to dodge out of the way of every single one, looking to the future of each second. As he's distracted, however, this is when Deku would now come down to the ground below, telling him that if he wants to not die, then he will give him that paperweight, as he holds his hand out, telling Night Eye that he'll stop them immediately as he does so. Night Eye would say that there's no way he could get him to ever do that. Deku would sigh, as he then would deactivate his shadow clone, saying they can easily do this, as he would then breathe in. Sexy jutsu! This is when he creates the jutsu and used from Naruto Uzumaki, and would create a sexy version of All Might. Night Eye would be shocked as his mouth is gaping open as he sees All Might in this way. With Night Eye standing stock still, Deku would just calmly walk forward as he grabs the paperweight out of his hand, with Night Eye falling to the ground before his nose starts to bleed. Mirio would be shocked, as even when Night Eye had seen this prediction, he had no idea that he'd actually be able to do this, thinking that it was crazy of how versatile a Quirk could be like this. As Deku would hold the paperweight, flipping up into the air, and then eventually giving it back to Night Eye, he'd say he thinks that he passed the test. As Night Eye would look up at him shocked that one of his predictions he could actually fail at beating. With Night Eye being helped up by Mirio, and him now accepting Deku as a student, he would say that it was good to have Mirio training with Deku, as he can tell he's very strong, and he'll probably make an incredible hero in the future. Deku would say thanks to him, as it's now made official that Deku is under Night Eye as his pupil. With Deku now working underneath Night Eye along with Mirio, doing checks around the city and working for him, both him and Mirio would be briefed more about the Overhaul incident, as well as what's going on with the Yakuza organization and their current target of what they're searching for. Deku would be rather concerned about this, as he hears something that's rather disturbing to him. No way, he would think, as he's shocked with hearing about this. This organization has been gathering humongous beasts, with the recent being a ginormous fox that has 9 tails. They've been storing them in this underground facility. We don't know what purpose they have, and they also have this young girl that's been attached to their leader this entire time. Overhaul has never left her side, not even for a moment. This guy, there's no way, he would think, Deku being shocked that Overhaul is going after and capturing the tailed beasts. That's impossible, Deku would be thinking, as we see Deku's eyes beginning to shake as he looks at the screen, and there he sees the 9-tailed beasts from the past. Those are... We see flashbacks of the 9 tails wreaking havoc over the Leaf Village, causing destruction in its wake. Then we see all of the tails, the 1 tails as Naruto battles it outside the Leaf Village during the Chunin exams, the 8 tails, and so on and so forth. The old man, he told me about this. This is what Deku would be thinking, as he thinks back to when he had first met the Sage of Six Paths, who had told him about the history of the Naruto world, as well as the 9-tailed beasts, which would collect together to create the 10 tails. If Overhaul's collecting all of these tailed beasts, then there must be only one thing that he's after. He's trying to revive the 10 tails. Deku would be absolutely shocked, not able to say a word to Night Eye or any of the other heroes who were there, as he is trying to stumble over his words, explaining what's going to happen. We have to hurry, Deku would shout, as his sweat's beginning to pool out of his skin. He would have another flashback of the 10 tails, seeing its massive destruction across the land during the 4th Great Shinobi War. He would tell Night Eye immediately, Night Eye, if we can't get there in time, if Overhaul manages to combine all of those monsters together, this world, I don't know if even All Might could stop it. Deku's hyperventilating at this point. Night Eye and Mirio would both be trying to consolidate him, asking him if everything's alright and what's going on. Deku would pull himself together as he wipes his forehead, saying that they need to get there now. With Deku asking what's going on with the girl, they wouldn't have any information on her, but Deku would think she must be extremely important for this plan if Overhaul needs her to combine the tailed beasts. Could she have some sort of sealing technique? Or, no. There's no way that she could have chakra as well. That's impossible. The Sage of Six Paths told me that I was the only person in this world who could use chakra at this point. Deku would think as he's analyzing his situation that he has coming to him now. Deku would take a deep breath before asking Night Eye how fast can he pull everyone together for the strike mission. With Night Eye now understanding the imperative of the mission, with Deku explaining to him that those monsters can combine into one ginormous beast powerful enough to destroy a continent, he would be extremely shook as well, with him asking Deku how he knows about this. Deku would say that his quirk has something to do with these beasts, but he wouldn't go further than that. Well, Night Eye is collecting all the heroes that he can get at the moment to get ready for a strike op mission. Deku and Mirio would be sent out on patrol to help Deku calm his nerves. With Deku and Mirio walking, Deku would begin to calm down, as Deku's breathing less rapidly now, and is able to critically think out the situation. Mirio, how far can you get with One For All right now, do you think? Well, with my current strength, I could probably manage about 25% of my overall body, if I spread it out completely. But then again, I could probably get more if I really pushed myself. Mirio would hold his fist up, thinking power. With Deku now thinking if there's any strategy he could use using Mirio's raw strength against the tailed beasts. He doesn't know how One For All would actually shape up against these tailed beasts, thinking about how strong they are from the memories he's inherited from the shinobi generation. He would think about any plan he could use to counteract against them, thinking if there's any technique that he could remember from the past that could control them. Wait a minute. He remembered from a very old memory of Hashirama Senju, his own great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, about a technique that someone called Madara Uchiha had used to tame the Ninetales. Madara Uchiha. And Uchiha, he would think. Wait. Deku would remember that Aizawa actually has the Sharingan after Deku would use his chakra to artificially devolve his own quirk back to chakra-related power, which gave Aizawa an extremely high upgrade, allowing his quirk to be used more as well as use his life energy to use it instead, which made his quirk much stronger. Eraserhead is the only person alive right now who has any Uchiha blood left in him. If he's coming on this mission, there might be a way we could use his quirk in order to tame the tailed beasts, he would think. As suddenly they would round a corner. We see Overhaul and Eri standing there, with Eri running out, as Deku would turn to the left, shocked seeing her running towards them. Overhaul would apologize as he and his minion come up, walking behind Eri, as Eri would run behind Deku and hide behind him as Overhaul's coming closer. You know, daughters, how they can be, Overhaul would say, calmly trying to get Eri back to him. Deku, who knows that Eri is definitely supposed to be important to his plan, would try and keep Eri back as he's about to extend an arm. Mirio would grab Deku's hand as he pulls it down, with Deku turning around, his eyes lighting up as he and Mirio lock eyes, both of them uncertain of the situation. With Eri looking up in fear as she's taken away by Overhaul, her eyes are filled with fear, and as she looks towards Deku, he can only think one word: help me. As Deku's being pulled away by Mirio, Deku's speechless as they get back to the actual HQ of Night Eye. Deku would be shaken to his core from this event as he realizes that he just let someone who was crying out for help go without even putting up a fight. As Mirio now bangs his head into the table, feeling the same exact pain, he told Deku there's nothing they could have done. If Overhaul and that other guy together could have beat both of them and had actually taken them out before returning to their base, their defenses would be up, and there's no way the strike team could work. With Deku and Mirio now both being stumped and also feeling complete regret of not saving Eri, the strike team would be pulled together, with Aizawa definitely recommended by Deku, as he would tell him that he thinks Aizawa has the potential to perhaps be able to cancel out the tailed beast's power. Around a day ago, we can see Kirishima and Facum's team now wandering around the city on their nightly patrols. Suddenly, an outrage is happening in a crowd, where we see around a low-time criminal about to inject himself with a needle. We see him with scissors and needles coming out of him, as Kirishima would come in to intervene. As Kirishima was about to attack this seemingly weak villain, he would inject himself with the needle, and eventually his quirk would get powered up. Suddenly, needles begin to spring out of his body, faster than they were going before, and they're becoming larger and larger, as his entire body is seemingly more muscular as well. Kirishima is getting cut up, as he's using his quirk to harden his body so he can combat this attack. With Kirishima having to go into his ultimate mode, where he goes into his maximum levels of hardness, don't take it out of context, Kirishima would then attack the villain and defeat him just like he would in the original with his unbreakable mode. Once Kirishima had done this, Facum would congratulate him, and this would be when the call for the strike meeting would be arranged. With Kirishima's part out of the way, and then reporting about this strange drug that boosts quirks that's been apparently being sold around the cities to villains, now Night Eye would begin to picture together the idea of what's going on. We have villains using artificial drugs in order to boost their powers. We know that Kajisake, the leader of the current Yakuza group that we're facing, has been collecting 9 large beasts with different numbers of tails. And according to young Midoriya here, they can be combined to create something that's on a continental level of destruction. Overhaul's quirk allows him to alter and combine things, meaning he's most likely planning on using his own power in order to merge these beasts. The only question I have is why he hasn't done it yet. Deku would be thinking about this as Night is explaining this to them, as he then trying to piece together what the drug has to do with the tailed beasts. Eventually, they would begin scouting out the blueprints and figuring out how they're going to be invading the Yakuza's base. While the heroes are debating this, we see Overhaul meeting up with the League of Villains. just as they had before in the original, with Mr. Compress's arm being dislodged from its area that it had used to be comfortably living in. We see Overhaul overpowering the League of Villains rather single-handedly. No pun intended to Mr. Compress. With Overhaul basically having complete power over the League of Villains, Toga and Twice would be sent over to Overhauls to work for them for a while, just like they would have been in the original. However, when they arrive at the Yakuza base this time, they are sent strictly to a very specific area where they are allowed to be, and they are not allowed to go into any of the lower levels of the base, with Overhaul's base being much, much deeper underground than it would have originally. Toga and Twice would swear that they could hear roars coming from down the hall. Damn, these guys are hardcore. I mean, they're so lame, Twice would think, as he says it aloud, contradicting himself once again. With the heroes now on their way to the Yakuza base, having everything planned out, Deku would be sent along with the strike team of Mirio, Aizawa, as well as Rocklock and the others from the original first strike squad that were sent down to the base, with Uraraka, Tsu, as well as the other students working on work studies being up above, with Kirishima being the exception with Fat Gum and the rear vanguard. With now everyone invading the base, we would see Ryoko, the dragon, if you don't know who she is, she's the dragon hero, now fighting with the actual guards outside of the Yakuza base. With Deku as well now being in the forefront using his shinobi skills, he would use shadow clones to investigate every corridor, making sure which one was the right path ahead of time. By using his own ability of wood style as well to break through any pathways that he needs to, he takes out several villains or Yakuza that are guarding the different hallways. Mirio, of course, would be moving ahead, this time even faster since he now has one for all with yellow sparks charging across his body, causing his quirk to be overdriven with power, as he's now moving ahead. With him now making it to the lowest levels of the floor first, suddenly distortion would begin to affect the entire underground base, as we would see the villain who was able to affect the area around him now using the drug in order to stop the hero's assault. With now Eraserhead using his Sharingan to look ahead and see what the actual villain's doing, to see what their quirk is and how it works because of the Sharingan's abilities, he would tell Deku what's going on and have Deku send some wood clones over that way so that they were stronger and could deal with attacks. With Deku now teaming up with Aizawa as the two of them now work together, Falcom and Kirishima would be taken down to that lower path where they would battle against the two other Yakuza members from the elites that Overhaul has, with Kirishima barely able to withstand the final strike just as he was in the original, and Falcom releasing all of his power at once to defeat the two of them. With Kirishima and Falcom's victory, but both being exhausted, they would take a small break before they climb back up to meet with the rest of the group. By this time, however, Deku would have already been catching up to Mirio, as they had taken care of the distortion villain. With Deku running into Twice as well as Toga, Toga would be extremely hesitant to fight Deku, as Toga still has a small kurusu on Deku because of the Stain incidents and how he reminds her of Stain because of his shinobi-like appearance and such. With Deku avoiding that crisis and the two of them escaping the lair of Overhaul, Deku would now descend to the final floors. As he's walking, he feels the door shuddering. There's no way, he would think. As he walks up to the door inside, he would place his hand. He could feel it. There's chakra inside this door, he would think. As Deku would then use a jutsu, as he uses one of his hand seals to push the door open. There we see Mirio reaching out to Deku, as we see Ares shielded by his red cape. With Mirio holding out a strand of his hair, Deku would know what's going on. Suddenly a bullet would be shot from the edge of a gun, as Deku's eyes lock with the person shooting it towards Mirio. Mirio is about to lose his quirk. Mirio, however, with his reaction speed, knows what's going to happen, as he's already had the one bullet hit him before, which was less effective, and basically he knows that if this bullet hits him, he's going to lose all of his quirk, and One For All will go along with it. So the only person there who can actually take the power is Deku. Deku would lunge forward, using Sage Mode, Wood-style Sage Mode immediately, pushing all of his body forward as he bites down on Mirio's hair and swallows it immediately. As soon as the power transits to Deku, we suddenly see a blood burst out of Mirio's side as the bullet hits him, taking away his quirk of permeation, and as well as the sparks of One For All that were left behind. With Mirio falling and Deku now becoming the next successor of One For All, Deku would look up in rage, as he knows that there was nothing he could do. He failed in protecting Mirio-senpai. With him now staring down at Mirio, bleeding on the ground, with Eri crying, he would look to Eri and look over to Overhaul. As Wood Sage Mode style covers his body, Overhaul would see it, as he's shocked. "You possess it, don't you?" he would say, as he begins itching his neck with his hands, his gloves, thinking about it as he lusts for Deku's quirk, his power. "You have what they have, don't you?" he would think, as Overhaul's eyes narrow, seeing Deku's form of Wood-style Sage Mode. "You have the ancient power, the power of Chakra, the purest form of quirks, the original successor of why our world is the way it is today. You possess it. After thousands of years, hundreds and many years of my own searching, I finally found one. You are the last shinobi." With Deku's eyes shocked, realizing that someone else knows about the secret of the Naruto world, which has become My Hero Academia, Deku would begin to feel a bit of fear, as Overhaul would begin to explain his plan as the two are slowly walking around each other. Deku knows that One For All won't kick in for several hours, just from what he heard from Mirio and All Might, and he won't have access to it during this fight. So he's going to have to use his own power, and there's no way he could even master One For All if Mirio couldn't master it in that short of time. With Deku now facing off against Overhaul, Overhaul will begin to monologue about his plan. "You already know about the tailed beasts, don't you? Their power, the real power they possess," Overhaul would say. With Deku shocked as how he could know all this information, Overhaul would then say, "You're probably thinking about how I even know about this, aren't you? Well, you're not the only one who has some family connections to the shinobi," he would say. As, with Overhaul looking back, his eyes looking to the sky, he would say that he is actually also a descendant of a shinobi. Chisake would explain to Deku how Eri's grandfather, the head of the Yakuza, was actually a long descendant of the shinobi, as well as his influence on the Yakuza in trying to capture the tailed beasts and what they've been doing for years. His entire family had been trying to capture all of them in order to reunite them to bring back the world of the shinobi. Overhaul would then pause before he says, "But that's not why I care about it," he would say, as he looks at Eri, crushing her with his hands from far away as if though to swat a fly, as he waves at her, telling her to come back to him. Eri would begin to tear up again as she cries, holding Mirio's cape between her to cover herself, to block herself from Overhaul's gaze. Deku would stand in front of Eri and tell him to leave her alone, with Eri and then now her horn beginning to grow slowly. Overhaul would then mention, "Oh, you don't know what Eri's quirk even is, do you?" As he would then explain about Eri's power of rewind. Eri can rewind the human body, living things. I can have her rewind me, in fact, to the point where I could have chakra, even probably more than you, he would say. "I'll revert this unpure world back to the way it was meant to be, a world of death, a chaos, shinobi, and battle," Shisekai would say, relishing every word coming out of his mouth. "Shut up," Deku would say, mumbling, as Overhaul would ask what he just said. Deku would look up, his face now covered with deep black markings, the same as his great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather, Hashirama Senju. "I said shut up!" he would say, as Deku would lunge forward using Wood Style. "Wood Style! Deep Forest Emergence Jutsu!" Overhaul would say, having already merged himself with several of the tailed beasts. As Overhaul would then suddenly burst forth a tentacle, he would have the 8 tails merge inside of him already. The 8 tails, Deku would think, as a wave of tentacles would then smash into Deku's force, causing destruction. This is when Overhaul would begin to change, as he absorbs both of the members of the Yakuza who he had along with him. "I guess it's time for the final act," he'd say, as he touches the ground, using his quirk to rearrange the ground before they begin to fall deeper and deeper underground. Suddenly we see behind him a cage, and within that cage we see one tailed beast left. "The final tailed beast," he would say, "before I become the 10 tails Jinchuriki and revive the 10 tails," he would say, as Overhaul would begin to turn around and walk towards the Kyubi, the 9 tails. We see Kurama roaring as he sees Deku. He could smell it. You're You're his descendant, Kurama would think in his head. We see an image of Deku, and it suddenly begins to flash, turning back into Naruto. We see Boruto and all of the descendants from Naruto and Boruto and so on and so forth, until eventually reaching Deku. Then that means, Kurama would think, Deku would see Kurama's eyes. As he remembers the memories of Naruto, he would call out for him, Kurama! As Deku would reach his hand out, suddenly Kurama would burst out of his cage using a Bijou bomb and using some of his chakra to escape. With Overhaul now running towards the Kyuubi, trying to absorb it quickly before it can reach Deku. The Kyuubi would run towards Deku, as Overhaul is just about to touch it to combine it with himself. Suddenly, Deku would grab the Ninetales, as half the Ninetales would be pulled apart again, just as it had been those hundreds of years ago, as Overhaul takes the good half of the Ninetales, while Deku would possess the half of the Ninetales that Naruto had possessed within himself so many years ago. Sealing Jutsu! He would seal Kurama within himself quickly, using a seal of the Jinchuriki by using wood style. This won't last long, he'd say, but hold out. With him and Kurama now sharing thoughts, Kurama would say he can only do this one time since they're not perfectly synced, as he would say that he knows that he's a descendant of Naruto, and that's his best friend. Kurama would now think about Naruto and all the memories they had together. One more time, he'd think. Let's do it. As he syncs his chakra with Deku, Deku would open the gate, releasing the seal. As Kurama's chakra began to mix with Deku's, suddenly Deku's body began to get covered with golden flames, as his body is now entering KCM. With Deku now accessing KCM mode, his speed and agility and all of his strength begins to go up. With Deku now realizing that his power is almost quadrupled, he would look over to see Overhaul, whose skin is beginning to turn white. Overhaul began to laugh as he slowly begins to feel himself powering up from all the tailed beast's chakra. If only I could absorb you as well, he would say, as he begins to feel himself changing. Suddenly a black staff would emerge in his hands as he feels himself being purified as he finally takes it all. He finally became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. Suddenly his form begins to change as he asks what's going on, as chakras begin to enrage within him. As the chakras begin to overpower Overhaul's body, his body would become more monstrous as he grows to that horrible size, looking like a mixed version of himself from the original as well as the Ten Tails. Deku would use his power as he goes into Kurama's sync mode and creates a Bijou bomb, using the Bijou bomb to blast Overhaul out of his own base and into the sky. Deku would run up the side of the wall in Kurama's sync mode, roaring as he feels the Jinchuriki power overstressing his body. Damn it! I can't keep this up for long. I used so much chakra when I was sealing the Ninetales chakra within me. How did those Jinchuriki do it, he'd think? As he then rushes out of the hole that's within the ground in the middle of the city, he would see Overhaul now fully beginning to transform into the Ten Tails. I have to pull them out now, Deku would think. Wood style, 1,000-arm Buddha. As he would create a 1,000-arm, ginormous fox made out of wood. This Buddha would begin to throw fisticuffs as it punches at faster and faster speeds, copying the technique of his grandfather Hashirama Senju. With a final blow, Deku would then punch Overhaul deep into the ground as he goes deep within himself and uses all of his chakra combined with Kurama's for one last attack. Massive planetary Rasengan! As Deku plunges into the ground, piercing the Rasengan deep into Overhaul, he would feel the chakra being diverged from the tailed beasts, as he enters the mind state of the tailed beasts and would help pull them all out using wood style. Suddenly, we can hear a ripping sensation as Overhaul is completely ripped and dissected away from the tailed beasts, with Deku having fully overpowered him and the tailed beast being free. Deku would not be able to hold the seal anymore, as the wood-style seal he'd used on himself to keep Kurama in was about to burst. He would let Kurama out as a burst of chakra would come, with Deku almost passing out from Kurama remerging with himself, as Deku now lays on the ground, completely motionless. The tailed beast would thank Deku for saving them, just as the boy that they had known once those hundreds of years ago had done for them back then. Luckily this time, nothing like that happened, they would think, as they remember Kaguya Otsutsuki's revival, and the battle of Naruto and Sasuke against her. Deku would tell the tailed beasts that they need to get out of there before the other heroes arrive. They won't understand what's going on, with all the tailed beasts leaving, except for one. Kurama would stay by Deku's side, telling him that he's chosen that he wants to rebond with the Uzumaki line, as he did owe Naruto quite a lot of favors for back then, and he thinks this is the best way he could ever pay them off. He He would tell Deku that he's been pretty lonely over the past hundreds of years himself, and that if it wouldn't mind, he would help Deku if he would like to become his Jinchuriki, the first Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails in several centuries. Deku would pass out, as Kurama would tell him he'd meet him again sometime, with Kurama fleeing the scene before the rest of the heroes can arrive. With the last of his consciousness remaining, Deku would have used Wood Style in order to cover Overhaul and completely trap him so that when the heroes arrive, they could take him into custody. Overhaul will be shrieking as he tells them that it's all her fault, as he looks at Eri telling her that she should have just given him Chakra. If she had given him Chakra, this wouldn't have happened, and he could have been able to become the perfect Jinchuriki. With Overhaul now being slapped and shut up, and his mental state being completely ruined, Eri would be in a complete state of shock, as she still hasn't used her rewind power like she's in the original, so she has a ton of stress built up in her horns, like, ready to burst. With her about to use her rewind, Deku would see as Aizawa uses his quirk cancellation to cancel Eri's rewind, letting her calm down as her horn begins to shrink. Aizawa would ask Deku what happened, with Deku laying there not even knowing himself. Deku would pass out and fall into a deep sleep, where he would see several figures inside of a dream. These figures would be the previous holders of One For All. By Eri, we can see Night Eye, with Night Eye still bleeding from the spike that was jabbed within him from the battle. Deku would be completely passed out this time, and he wouldn't even see Night Eye. With Night Eye being consoled by the other heroes, he would eventually be hospitalized, with Deku waking up several weeks later after the attack and him actually meeting some of the users from One For All, which we'll get into next time. He would see off Night Eye, as him and Mirio would watch Night Eye as he would pass on into the next world. If you can recall last time, I mentioned that I'd be going over what happened while Deku was unconscious and as he met the users of One For All, minus Mirio and All Might for obvious reasons. With Deku now back, as we have a small flashback from where we currently are. Since last time Night Eye had just died while Deku was unconscious, Deku now is currently unconscious right after the fight with Overhaul. As Deku has now intaken One For All's power, this quirk booster that was created so long ago, once quirks had become the main power source on the planet and overtaken Chakra. As Deku opens his eyes, he thinks that he's woken back up. As he stands up, he looks around, realizing that he doesn't have any legs. What's going on, he would think, as he looks down, seeing both of his arms and down to his chest with his head. He's looking around thinking that something weird's going on, when he would look up and see that they're standing there, one of the first users of One For All. In fact, the first user of One For All. As he would greet young Midoriya. "There we are," he would say. "We finally made it full circle, huh?" The first user would say, as he would then begin to walk over to Deku, as he would analyze him. "Your chakra's impressive," he would say, as he then can feel Deku's energy through his mental and spiritual energy, or even in this place in One For All. "How do you know about chakra, and where are we? Who are you?" Deku would be curious, as well as a little bit scared of where he is, and he can't feel his actual body, or he can't even feel his chakra. What's going on, he would think. This would be when the first user began to explain a few things. This power, One For All, was built to defeat his older brother, All For One. But he already knew that, right? Deku would nod. This power has a secondary purpose as well. We're not just guarding against the evils that come from this planet, but something else, he would say. You may be wondering how a few of the users have died beforehand when we have such a great power from the stockpiling level quirk, correct? Midoriya would then nod, while proceeding to ask what he's talking about, what this has to do with anything. This power is created to take down All For One, no matter how long it took, right? The first user would nod as he then says that there was a secondary purpose as well. The 0 point of all quirks, Chakra, is now back in the world. This will mean a few things, he would say, as he holds up his hand. 1, the quirk singularity will begin to take place, and really soon, in the next 20 years, I'd say. The quirk singularity, he would say, as Deku has a small flashback to hearing Overhaul talk about the quirk singularity, as well as Chakra and how he was going to save the world, and save and bring humans back to their rightful forms. Yes, the first user would say. Hundreds of years ago, there used to be great shinobi nations that covered the land of fire, wind, lightning, earth, grass, water, and so on and so forth, he would say, bringing up the ninja villages. The people in these villages had a special power. In fact, everyone in this world had this power, called Chakra, something that only you can tap into and possess now. though I for certain I don't know why. How do you know about Chakra? Deku would then ask immediately, being the one to ask the questions here. The younger brother of All For One would hesitate, as he would then say he'd be running out of time as soon as Deku was waking up. He would quickly tell Deku that he would explain more soon, but before he can leave, he had to tell Deku one more thing. Beware the fearsome clan of the Otsutsuki. The same one that Kaguya is from, he would think, as Deku would recall memories of her. As Deku's consciousness is fading out of this world of existence, All For One's brother, the first user, would then tell Deku, 10th user, you need to know this before you return back to the real world. Our planet is currently safe for now. Our only threat is each other, villains and heroes as you all play with them now. As we play with them, he would think, as Deku would see silhouettes of different people in the background, with a few of them already being visible. Deku would ask what this all means, with then the first user taking his finger and touching Deku on the forehead, saying they'll speak again sometime. Deku would then wake up in the real world in the hospital, as he's now sweating. He's awake! Hurry, get over here! She would say, as you see Uraraka now sitting next to Deku's hospital bed, having stayed there pretty much 2 days to make sure he was alright. Deku would sit up as he thinks, too close, as he's now blushing and sweating, with him asking Uraraka what she was doing there, with Uraraka looking at him concerned. You've been passed out for almost 2 days. 2 days? Deku would say, as he can only recall having that conversation with the first user for maybe 3 minutes. Wow, that world must have some sort of time that speeds up faster than the one we're in right now, Deku would think, as he feels his hand. Something's different, he would say, as he looks and feels inside of himself as he closes his eyes, sensing the nature, energy, and the chakra around him. Once One For All had entered his body, his chakra had been amped up as well as his chakra pool. It's like I have 9 people's chakra pools all tied together. Something that Deku doesn't know about One For All at this point is that a bit of the souls of the users of One For All are all connected. So now that Deku's soul has been added, that he can utilize the chakra from all the past users. The way this works is that basically since none of them could use chakra, they had their chakra pools from their natural life in their soul pretty much untapped. Like underground pools of water in the real world where people can find caverns, if that's a visual example. Deku can tap into these different chakra pools as he combines them with his own, making him have a larger chakra pool. Back to the moment at hand, though. Uraraka is thankful that Deku's alright, and Deku now has One For All. Wait, one for... Mirio, he would think as he then pops out of bed immediately. Careful, you were out for 2 days! Deku would fall down to one leg as Uraraka would help him up, carrying him. Where's Mirio? He would ask Uraraka with a sense of desperation. Uraraka would hurry as she would help Deku hobble, as he's not fully recovered from his fight with Overhaul just yet. With him then now making it to the room, we see a room that has Night Eye's name on it, but with an empty bed. Midoriya would be shocked, thinking what happened, with Ochako telling Deku about what happened to Night Eye. He passed away while you were asleep. No, that's impossible, Deku would think, as he has visions of his head of him fighting against Night Eye, and Night Eye having worked with him in the workspace and everything that's happened to this point. Deku would now be shocked that someone, a pro hero like Night Eye, could have died. Where's Mirio? He's in there, Ochako would say. And she'd open the door and Midoriya would walk in. There he would see Mirio sitting next to the bed, his hand on it, with his eyes closed. Mirio, are you alright? Uraraka would close the door behind them, as Uraraka would walk out as it's just Mirio and Deku now alone together. I'm fine, but what I'm more worried about is, did I transfer One For All to you fast enough? Did it not get deleted with my quirk as well from those quirk erasing bullets from Chisakai? He would say, as he would ask Deku with a look of worry in his eyes. Deku would sigh as he looks down, as he thinks about the moment when Mirio passed on his quirk to him to save One For All and keep the stockpile quirk that All Might possessed going. Deku would hold up his left hand as he focuses unlocking One For All, and green sparks mixed with some chakra would then flow out of his arm. Wow, Mirio would say. So it did work. Mirio would be smiling now as he looks relieved. I was so worried about what happened to it that I could barely sleep, Mirio would say. He's now in a much more happy, joyous attitude even. Why do you look so happy, Mirio? You lost your quirk. And One For All? The power entrusted to you by All Might. How are you so positive right now, Deku would say, as he himself is feeling himself with his mood going down. Deku would be concerned about the future of the Hero Society, and especially but where the Otsutsuki clan would ring in his ears. Deku would now have more worries on his mind, as Mirio would then pat him on the shoulder, with Deku's eyes now clearing as he looks at Mirio. Mirio would smile, saying that once Eri can learn how to control her quirk, then he can revert and gain his permeation quirk back, and he would say as he looks down, I always thought you were a better candidate for One For All than I was anyway. That's what I kept telling the sir, he would say as he looks down at the bed, with Mirio, his eyebrows actually going in as he feels himself shedding a tear. Deku would then ask if Mirio's alright, with him seeing Mirio cry. I don't know how I'm gonna go on without... Mirio would stop as he's choking up, and Deku would pat him on the back. Mirio would then look up, giving a weak smile to Deku, as he tells him that he's going to have to continue forward, carrying the world as the new symbol of peace. Deku would be looking at Mirio now, if he really means that. Mirio would nod, telling Deku that he has to keep moving forward, no matter what, and he has to protect everyone. Deku would crunch his fists together as he feels his muscles congregating into a single point. He would then stand up as he feels himself not wobbly anymore, his chakra having completely regenerated. You're right, he would say, as he tells Mirio that he's going to continue on, and he's going to keep fighting. Deku would walk out of the room as he says goodbye to Mirio. Deku would now be heading back to classes as Izuku Midoriya has returned to UA. With everyone in class cheering back for Deku's recovery, except for Bakugo, everyone would be relieved that Deku was alright and had recovered smoothly. This would be when Aizawa would walk in and say that, with his droopy eyes and dark attitude, that UA would be holding their very own UA Culture Festival soon, and that every class would be putting on their own event. He'd ask Class 1A what they'd be looking to do, with everyone debating on what they'd be doing for their event. Everyone would eventually come to the same idea of doing a concert, with Jiro being nominated as their band leader. Of course, Bakugo would volunteer to do his drum action, and everyone else would pretty much have the same positions. Deku would be told about his complete lack of skills with dancing, but Deku's skills as a shinobi, a ninja, would be extremely useful on top by carrying Aoyama as a disco ball. And so everything at this point pretty much lines up with this arc at least, with Deku having chakra not really being too different, other than the fact that he could do some interesting special effects with different jutsu. Anyhow, Deku would be sent out to get rope the same way he would have normally, even though Yakuza could have totally made some rope with her quirk, but whatever. Anyhow, not putting out any plot points there, but as Deku was sent out, he would also be getting the tea that Momo would have told him to, because... yeah, that was a thing, if you can remember. And so he'd go to that same tea shop that the gentle criminal himself would also have gone to. Here's where the paths between the two would begin to cross, as Deku would catch a glimpse of someone wearing a long overcoat, as well as a shorter woman with red hair. I feel I need to bring up at this point as well that Deku pretty much just got One For All, so he doesn't have all of these suit requirements that he had by this point in the series where he wants different changes and such. So he doesn't have those gauntlets that he uses in the actual timeline at this point for obvious reasons of him not even having One For All for a long enough period of time to where he could come up with different things that he would need. Anyhow, back to the story itself. Gentle as well as the Bravo would both be in disguise right now, with them wearing masks, as well as on the overcoats and hats they had on. Deku the other night, before the festival was getting started, would have obviously clicked on the same video since that wouldn't have changed just because he had chakra. And as Deku almost bumps into the two, this would be when Gentle would comment that almost ruined his tea of his favorite tea, the Gold Imperial Tips, with Deku remembering Yaoyorozu, then sharing some with him turning to the right and asking if that really is a cafe or some sort of tea shop. With Gentle now surprised that someone could actually recognize the greatness of his favorite tea, he would begin talking about how great it is that someone so young understands the true greatness of tea, which would make Deku get a bit frazzled before he hears his voice and recognizes him. Deku would be solemn as he and Gentle Criminal both realize that Gentle screwed up. Gentle talked to Deku too long, and he would put two and two together, realizing that if Deku had such a high-class friend who could afford such luxuries to even allow him to try it, then he had to have gone to a prestigious school. Deku would look up as he recognized Gentle's voice through the mask, as he had watched just a video that day beforehand, and Deku in this version has extremely heightened senses, as well as being just as smart as he was in the original. Deku would put his bags down that has the rope in it that he had got, as he then tells Gentle Criminal that he won't allow him to ruin the UA festival and set off that alarm, saying that he'd watched Gentle's newest video, and he knows what he's up to. With Gentle and Labrava now looking at each other when they try to excuse themselves as they begin to walk away, Deku would say he's not going to allow him to get away, as he would then charge forward using a bit of One For All since he has it now, and it can boost his physical speed and other stats. Deku with one foot would push forward. With his front foot he would step as he throws a punch, trying to take Gentle out with a single blow. As he throws his punch, he would suddenly realize that he's stuck. Deku feels like his entire body's wrapped in plastic wrap, as Gentle would then use Gentle Rebound, sending Deku flying back down the street. Deku would catch himself using Chakra and clinging to the walls, making Deku skid just a few feet further down the wall before he catches himself with his Chakra, saying he's not going to let him get away that easily. Gentle and Labrava would try to run as they try and make it through the woods to get to UA. Deku at this point would realize what they're going to do, as he would use a Shadow Clone, and with his One For All strength would throw the Shadow Clone towards Gentle. He's here already? I'll have to make a diversion, he would say. He'd use the air and use his elasticity quirk for him and Labrava to jump on the air, as he would then head towards the industrial building. Deku would follow close behind using his Chakra. Wood style, he would say as he claps his hands together. By clasping his hands, he would then slam it to the ground, causing a large tree to sprout out of the concrete. He would then jump from the tree towards the industrial building, as he uses Shadow Clones to grab onto the building itself. Deku would warn Gentle that this is his last chance to turn himself in, or Deku's gonna have to get serious. Gentle, who would have already set a trap using the metal bars and making them elastic, would have told Deku to give it his best shot. Deku would grit his teeth as he tells Gentle that he asked for this, as he would then clasp his hands together to create the Chakra. With him not wanting to cause any destruction, being a hero and all, he would use his Chakra to create a slim as well as effective jutsu, by using one of his old bullet jutsus that he hasn't used in a while. Fire bullet jutsu! He would think, as he then clasps the hand seals together as he holds it up towards, his hand and palm open. Small bullets of flame begin to erupt out using his Chakra and transforming it into this nature. Gentle would be surprised as he would then activate his trap, with everything beginning to bounce and become rubbery. He used the air as a shield, but Deku had predicted this. As Izuku Midoriya would then shoot the beams of flame towards him, the bullets would fly into the elastic shield. However, because they were made of flame and the air was made out of air, just elastic, it would rip through it like paper, as the air would be heated up and bubble before it would rip out of the Quirk's control. The bullet would slam into Gentle, as he would use his elasticity on his clothing in order to make the bullet wound less effective. He'd fall backwards as he and Labrava would try and escape and get into the woods near UA now, successfully. Deku would say, damn it, as he then sees one of the metal bars falling down below, as the quirk of elasticity just deactivated, and one of his fire bullets had actually caused one of the metal pieces to go flying off. He would see someone walking down there, so he would then jump down. Through using 10 Shadow Clones, Deku would catch the iron piece and throw it down. Deku would quickly apologize as he bows 3 times before running after Gentle and jumping over the fence. As he chases after Gentle and Labrava, Gentle would begin trying to use some defensive maneuvers. But Deku would have had enough at this point, as he would quickly use a Shadow Clone he left behind to absorb some nature energy. As he deletes the Shadow Clone, he would then regain all that Sage Jutsu, as he takes the Sage Chakra within himself. Wood-style Sage mode, Deku would say, as he then activates it. His now strength and speed are even higher as he uses One For All, causing him to be almost like a blur. As he runs after Gentle, he would quickly be behind him, with Gentle not expecting this. Deku would throw a punch as he shoves his fist directly into Gentle's chest. We can see Gentle cough as spit and blood comes out of his throat, as he then goes slamming into a tree. Gentle! Labrava would scream, as she normally did in the show, with Labrava now using her quirk Love on Gentle immediately, with Deku being way stronger right now since he doesn't want to mess around, and Deku being a shinobi and all isn't as easy as he was in the original. With Deku preparing for a strike back, Gentle will be powered up from the Love quirk, causing him to have an enhanced quirk and physical strength. Him and Deku would now get into a small physical bout, with Deku using his shinobi skills of stealth as he would climb into the trees using Chakra control and jump from tree to tree just like Gentle was using his elasticity for. Deku could pretty much take care of Gentle with ease at this point, and now that he has Sage Mode and One For All activated, it's not even as much of a challenge as it was in the original, with him and Gentle now realizing that they're much more similar to each other than they had thought. And we get all the flashbacks of Gentle's past, and Deku saying he was the most difficult villain he ever fought, not because of his strength, but because of his personality. With Deku then coming down from the top, as he slams down directly into Gentle, using wood style and sealing him against the ground. With Gentle's last push, he would tell Labrava to run away. As Labrava would run, tears in her eyes, she wouldn't make it far, as some of the teachers from UA, including Ectoplasm and Aizawa, as well as a few others, would now be patrolling the area before the festival. With the capture of Gentle Criminal as well as La Brava underway, the heroes would take them away as Deku would see them off as they now leave, with Gentle regretting his decisions that he's made throughout his life. Anyhow, Deku would have to hurry as he grabs his ropes and then runs back to make it to the festival in time. As he gets there, barely in time, gasping as he opens the door and runs in, everyone would say that he barely made it, with Deku getting into costume as he would then climb up onto the stage getting ready for the event. Everything after this point is pretty much the same for the festival arc, so I won't be getting into it much, but if you guys want to see more of this what if, then make sure to tell me in the poll that I'll be posting after this video that you want me to continue into the manga before Season 5 starts, or if you want me to wait for the anime onlys. Thanks so much, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.